Today we are talking about our top 5 truest Jedi of all time.
The definition of a true Jedi, I feel like it's pretty malleable. I feel like you don't always have to be one specific thing, but I think that you know it when you see it.
None of these people are infallible.
Failure is the greatest teacher, and I think so much of the highlights of a lot of these characters is seeing their failures and how they overcome them.
I would say Obi-Wan would be that model of like, here's a Jedi.
When you say true Jedi, like when those words come to mind, the first thought is always Qui-Gon for me.
Kanan is able to love his family and let them go. And his sacrifice is a testament to that.
I'm going to wait to talk about Ahsoka because Ahsoka is a lot higher on my list.
Because Luke Skywalker is a living legend that went to the Death Star, faced down Palpatine and Vader alone, and came back alone.
One of yours, Grayson, is not on my list, dude.
What I see is the beginning.
Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to Mortis FM, a Star Wars podcast. I am Grayson, one of your hosts.
I am Cole, the other... Grayson? Someone's here.
Oh
Who
my
is this?
goodness. We have a guest with us.
Don't call me Ashton Kutcher because this isn't 2.5 Men. It's Mortis FM. Hey, everybody. It's me, Will, from Will of the Force on Instagram, YouTube, and an undisclosed location somewhere in the galaxy. What's going on, guys? I'm the second guest ever, is what it's.
Second guest ever.
I was almost number 1, but forever I'll be number 2.
It's okay, man.
Always two there
Hey.
are, and then there will be more guests after that.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Dude, thank you for
Thank
being
you
here.
for being here. No, I said it. Yeah, I take responsibility.
Well,
Thanks for being here, man. We really appreciate having you. Yes, this is Mortis FM's second guest event, and keep in mind, more of these are gonna show up. Don't know when, don't know where, don't know who, but they'll be there. Stay tuned for George Lucas.
there is a special reason why we brought Will of the Force on to Mortis FM, and I think it is one of the most fitting reasons. It's a discussion that this is a discussion that I've had a lot with Cole throughout our friendship, and I think this is something that Will has a lot of knowledge about as well. And you already know if you've seen the title. Today we are talking about our top 5 truest Jedi of all time. We're going to be working together collaboratively, pitching our personal top 5s to try to make a definitive, but definitely subjective, between the three of us, top 5 Jedi. And no, this is not power level. This is not the battles they've been through and stuff. This is who we think best embodies the trait of being a Jedi. So, Will, why don't you start us off and explain what your prerequisites were for selecting yours, and maybe we'll say ours as well before we jump right into it and probably start arguing.
Okay.
Yes.
What
To you is a true Jedi?
To me, a true Jedi, well, canonically, so if you were to go into Star Wars history the way George Lucas wrote it, canonically, a true Jedi is at the end of a level of Lego Star Wars, like when you finished it all the way and you got all the studs and all the mini kits, and it was
There is no way.
true Jedi. That's what a true Jedi. No, I'm kidding.
There's no way. I was going to say that. So, well, hey, at least we're on the same page. So
You let me go first.
man, well,
No, for True Jedi, I narrowed it down to, I was thinking about it a lot. Like, spent a lot of time today because there's a lot of traits of a Jedi that would like make good qualities for what a Jedi should be, or what a Jedi is, or what even other Jedi may consider to be, oh, that's a Jedi I should look up to. 3 qualities for me are wisdom, selflessness, and then intuition. So other qualities like compassion. There's things like, a lot of times when you think of Jedi, you think of the word balance, stuff like that. I think those are all kind of subcategories of those three that I picked. In terms of like just an overarching explanation of what I think a true Jedi or the truest Jedi is, it's just somebody who is morally a role model, not only to other people in the galaxy, but to other Jedi and other people that they are coming into contact with. And then also just like for us as fans, people that we can live up to in our own lives in the story of Star Wars that we've consumed for our entire lives.
Yeah.
Very, very well said. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
It was tough for me to think of a way to properly articulate what I believe to be a true Jedi, but I think I'm pretty much on the same page. I think I think something that is important is that the definition of a true Jedi is I feel like it's pretty malleable. I feel like you don't always have to be one specific thing, but I think that when you see one, like when you know it when you see it, right? Like for instance, getting all the studs in like a Star Wars, so when it's right in your face and it says,
makes the noise.
Yeah, it makes the noise, right? And so, I think that for me, choosing these all of these qualities, and but also just kind of what they've gone through as characters and how they grow, but how they see the galaxy, its people, and the Force as a whole, I think is what was very important to my selection. So
I'm right there with both of you. For me, some specific points that really stand out is empathy, and being able to put themselves amongst the people. I think we see so often Jedi were criticized for kind of hiding away in their temple and not going out in the galaxy and really doing anything, or people feeling like they weren't doing enough, and they got a little too comfy, a little too complacent. So the ones that were able to put that to the side and help the individual people, just on a personal level, all it takes is one spark to make an impact. So that's one thing for me. And just being able to when they are helping these people, to be able to see where they're coming from, to be able to be open to all perspectives and not judge, but to be able to guide, I guess. Mean, all of the things you guys mentioned, I think are incredibly important aspects. And like Cole said, you know one when you see one. And I think the last thing to that is, like you mentioned, Cole, there's so much that a lot of these characters go through. Some go through a lot more than others, and their ability to stay rooted in the path of the light and to reject the quick and easy path of taking the 2 times and 4 times and 6 times multiplier when they go through the levels to get true Jedi.
We all had to cash in on that joke, man.
I'm sorry, I was just waiting for that. Especially if they use the red brick with the dark side powers, dude. Like, come on. Like,
absolutely.
Just switch to Darth Maul or something. I think those are all great answers. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to present our number 5s and then 4s and 3s and 2s and 1s, and we will have some crossover. Yes, Will?
I would just like to point out for the listeners at home and anybody who is like going to get in the comments of like, oh, true Jedi. I know, at least for my list, and I can't speak for you guys, but knowing you guys, I can assume none of these people on our top 5 are infallible.
Yes.
None of them are perfect. None of them are without mistake or wrong decision, whether it's on screen or in comics or in a book or in Legends or in canon, whatever it is. So I was thinking about this today. I was like going through in my mind and then trying to do like the pros and cons list. So just thinking about, as we go through our lists, we're picking these people off of at least for me, what they can do in a situation rather than what they may have done in a situation. And then honestly, for a lot of these characters, how they were able to overcome what they did after making that decision. So
as Yoda says, failure is the greatest teacher. And I think so much of the highlights of a lot of these characters is seeing their failures and how they overcome them, you know? Because I think they all do, but in different ways because they have such different stories. So we're going to start off with Will and then go to Cole, and then we're gonna do it snake draft style, but there will be so we're gonna let people have the floor, and then we will discuss, and we'll continue to track the list as we go. So Will, number 5, the floor is open to you.
Okay, I have a feeling like this might be a hot take in terms of a number 5, only because I would assume most people when making this list probably had him a whole lot higher. My number 5 is Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh, okay.
When I think of a Jedi, like if they were making a handbook for, we were all Disney cast members, okay? We all did the college program. When you do the college program, they give you a guideline book of the way your hair is supposed to be, how you're supposed to talk, what you're supposed to do. If they were making that model for a Jedi to give to all of the other Jedi, I would say Obi-Wan would be that model of like, here's a Jedi. This is what a Jedi does. I don't think it's without, it makes sense that would be the case because he was the first like Jedi master that George Lucas created. Like Luke, who's he going to learn from? Obi-Wan Kenobi. I think that makes sense. Stuff like for his character, I think in the entirety of the Star Wars galaxy, Obi-Wan really got the short end of the stick a lot of the time. And comparatively to his Padawan, to his brother Anakin, who also got the short end of the stick a lot of the time. I mean, every movie he has at least 1 or 2 people close to him die or turn on him, and then he becomes Darth Vader. Obi-Wan is the one who was able to deal with around those same things with the pressure of his master dying and having to train the chosen one while not losing sight of the goal at hand as a Jedi. No matter what he did throughout the time of when we meet him on screen in The Phantom Menace, all the way through him being a Force ghost in Return of the Jedi, Obi-Wan Kenobi always stuck to what he knew was right. Like I said earlier, did Obi-Wan make all of the right decisions all of the time? No, not all of the time. I mean, a lot of the time he made the wrong decisions, but it was his ability to react to those decisions and then be able to move on that I have him at. He's a great Jedi. He's one of my favorite Jedi, but there are, for me, 4 more who I would put at True Jedi above Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, that's very, very fair.
Very well said. Cole, I want you to speak on on your feelings on the matter first, because I have some thoughts as well. But I agree with all of your points, Will, and all I'll say is for those reasons I have him a lot higher, but I'm not going to say exactly where.
Oh no, totally fair.
Yeah,
totally fair.
Cole, what do you think?
So I'm going to be honest. So like this, I had mentioned before we started the show that I had made some adjustments to my list here. And I think I might regret this, but at the time, I'm kind of agreeing with Will's placement.
Wow.
Here's the thing, y'all. If it's no surprise, Obi-Wan is my favorite Star Wars character, other than General Grievous. I love him to death. He is I think that he is a true Jedi, which is why I put him on the list. But I think that in terms of becoming that true Jedi, like becoming that status, I think that yeah, Will's right. Like, I think that there was a lot of stuff in Obi-Wan's way to kind of prevent that thing for happening for him. He was facing adversity over adversity, and if I'm being honest, in terms of like who has been given the most crap out of the Jedi, probably Obi-Wan is up there, you know. Not just from the fans, but also what he has dealt with in his life, like loss of his master, loss of a potential lover, loss of a pseudo brother, pseudo son, pretty much, and then just like constant pain and trauma, but continually sticking to his morals and sticking to the mission, because that's what Jedi do. You know, they hold fast to their ideals in the face of great adversity. And as Luke says, like, confronting fear is the destiny of the Jedi. Obi-Wan is constantly confronting fear. Was there a little stint in his progress? Yeah, he got really depressed on Tatooine, but that's understandable, man. A lot happened. Yeah. Okay. The reason why, however, I put him at 5, and originally I had him at 2, but the reason why I have him at 5 is just because I feel like it's hard to put him above others in terms of the like true Jedi status. Because even though Obi-Wan did his best, there were always some things that he was never really able to let go of. Chiefly, like, what really prevented me from putting him at the top, just because of my own personal bias, was that for a very long time he had just straight up given up on Anakin, right? And that's understandable, right? Because as in Kenobi, like even before Kenobi, but it's shown to us in Kenobi that Vader's like, yeah, I'm happy about this. I murdered him. I'm Vader. I'm Darth Vader. I'm not Anakin. I'm not your guy, pal. And I'm not that guy, you know? And so it would make sense that to be told, after really holding on to that feeling that maybe he's still in there, or, you know, just for such a long time, I can understand why he would let go. But it was that willingness to abandon, you know, his former friend that just kind of told me, like, and you know, I say abandon loosely because it's not on Obi-Wan to do that, right? But for Yoda and Obi-Wan chiefly to just kind of encourage Luke that, like, you just got to put him down, dog. Like, that just doesn't say I need to put them at the top of the list. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And that's okay. As Will said, like, they're all fallible. Even my number one is completely fallible. Has failed multiple times and will probably continue to do so. But you know, we are our victories as much as our mistakes. So, yeah, I think I feel comfortable with having him at 5 for now.
Yeah.
But I love Obi-Wan, the negotiator, true Jedi.
Yeah. So my placement for him is going to probably surprise you, considering like who my favorites are. I think my argument for why I believe he should be higher is I think, despite him in a lot of regards being dealt the short hand, the first thing being, I think Obi-Wan is a prime example of someone who did not have naturally gifted power. It is explained in some of the books and things. This was in Legends and in canon, both with a master and apprentice and all of that stuff, that Obi-Wan was a late bloomer. He had to work very hard for his, like, I mean, he was a Padawan until like, his late 20s when he defeated Maul. So we get, we have a lot of, like, obviously people are like, oh, you know, you have to train to be a Jedi and things like that. And it's like, well, for someone like Anakin, it's so quick. He has such a natural gift for it. Obi-Wan did not have that natural gift. He also, Cole, you know more about lightsaber forms, but like the form that he is the master of that lightsaber form. Like, that has been said, like, he is the top dog. I think so. Yeah, it's the defensive form. So he is really good with that form. And then with the whole Anakin thing, with, you know, obviously him getting the responsibility of training him, I truly think he did everything he possibly could. Like, I can't think of a moment where I'm like, what else could he have done? You know, like, he immediately, his master was killed. He killed the Sith Lord, at least indefinitely, until Maul came back, and then was like, here's this boy, you have to immediately train him. And like you have like you basically do not have the facilities to do it, but do the best you can. And obviously we've heard time and time again that, like, you know, Obi-Wan was the older brother, but Anakin needed a father, and it's like, well, Obi-Wan couldn't be that, you know. Another thing for me is Obi-Wan's ability to admit when he's wrong. The one of my favorite things is when the whole Satine thing happens, when there's a point, I believe, where like, I'm trying to remember actually, so maybe I'm wrong, correct me if this does not happen, but like I'm fairly certain he speaks to Anakin about it, about being like, oh, like, does he ever actually talk to him about saying that like he would have left the order for her? I guess he doesn't, does he?
So it's in the Satine, doesn't he?
He says it to Satine, but does he ever say it to Anakin?
Yeah, so there's it's the episode where Anakin is like real. I think it's like it's either the episode or the arc that Anakin beats up Rush Clovis in Padme's apartment. Like he's like really upset, and Obi-Wan goes into Anakin's room while and it's really cool because Anakin has a Boonta Eve poster in his room.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan like sits down and he tries to talk to him. It doesn't work out, but he tries to talk to him, and he says, like, I have a certain idea what's going on here. You know that, you know my situation with Satine. You know that I once harbored feelings for her.
You're right. Yes.
But as Jedi, it's our, you know, kind of responsibility to put aside those feelings for the betterment of, you know, the galaxy and the Order and stuff like that. And then Anakin's like, I understand my responsibilities, and then that's really about it.
Yeah.
But he tries. And I think it's like, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think in that scenario, I'll retract a little bit of my defense point there, because I do think he could have done more in that regard. I do think he could have had a conversation with him to be like, listen, like when Padme reveals like that she's pregnant in Revenge of the Sith, and after everything's happened, he knows Anakin's the father. Like, and even in Clone Wars season 7, like it's pretty obvious. Like, doesn't he say like, say hello to Padme for me?
I hope you at least told Padme I said hello.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, bro, the guy absolutely knew, and I think all it would have taken to change a lot would have just to have been to have a conversation to be like, listen, like I mentioned before, I've had feelings for Satine. I know that there is something significant between you and Padme, and like I need you to know that like you don't have to hide that from me, you know, like that. And I think that is a crucial thing that like Obi-Wan could have done, but I think because of his position on the council, he probably was like, that's a hard thing to do, right?
Yeah.
And then yes, like you mentioned, his understandable reaction of like, Vader has to go down, like there's like he can't be saved, I tried. And obviously that was not Obi-Wan's destiny. I think he did everything that he could, but I mean, he encountered him, he fought him 3 times, and every single time Vader would like, he doubled and tripled down. He was like this is who I am now. And it was only Luke that could bring him back from that, right?
Yeah, I will say though, at the very least, there's a glimmer of light in the from a certain point of view, Return of the Jedi. And I won't go into detail about the story, but it's when Vader passes away, and I would just say go read it. You know, like I'm just saying that to the audience specifically, but like it does kind of sprinkle a little bit more sugar on my opinion of he gave up on Vader. Well, here's the thing. I mean, maybe he kind of threw the guy a bone at the end of the day. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. So I think
it was really, really nice.
I think, I know exactly what you're talking about. I haven't even read the story, but I know I've read excerpts from it. And I know exactly what you're talking about. But yeah, I think as I'm talking through it, so Obi-Wan was at my number 1, but I was really thinking, I really try to be objective with my list. Like, if I had to put my personal number 1, it would be way different, but obviously I'm not going to go that bold.
You're so real for that, man. I would have been right there with you, but something about like what Will said, I was like, man.
And that's the thing is I was hesitant. Like even like looking at our list, my list, I was like, yeah, like I have him at number 1, but something feels slightly off. Like I can't quite, because all of these characters that we're definitely going to be talking about all do have flaws. It's hard. It was really hard for me to pick a number 1. But I think I agree with y'all. I think he is very, very close, but I don't think he's I don't think he's right there at the very top. And I think maybe had the Galaxy dealt him a little bit a better hand, he might have been. But I think when it comes to being the, like you said, the handbook of what a Jedi is, I think he does all of those things right. In the best possible way, with like, because someone like Mace Windu, sorry Mace, I don't think you're going to be making an appearance here today.
Not on my list.
Sorry guys, he ain't on mine. I don't think he's on Cole's.
Ain't no way. I'm sorry, y'all.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Mace Windu is like the guidebook, but he's like kind of like the narc about it, And and so like, and Obi-Wan is the complete opposite. Like he's the more delicate person about it. So the fact Obi-Wan's at y'all's 5, that definitely overrules my number 1. Do we want to just put him at 5 for now and see how we feel?
I need to say, just so I can get it out of my mind before I forget about it. I want everybody to know that even though we're having a top 5 True Jedi list, they are not the only True Jedi.
Absolutely.
No.
I think that there are more than 5, and there are some that I'm really upset that didn't make it on my list.
Mm-hmm.
But something's got to give, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Okay, I'm gonna put. We can reevaluate at the end, but for now, on our group list, Obi-Wan is at number 5.
Yeah.
Cole, why don't you take the floor with your number 4?
Okay, so this might get a little heat, but I'm actually not sure because I was really tentative about this. My number 4 is actually Qui-Gon. So I think like more people, if you were to ask them, Qui-Gon might be higher on their list. I don't know if Qui-Gon is in either of your lists, but I think he could be, potentially, very much so. I just wanted to be, what's the word for it? I didn't want to be too forward about it. Qui-Gon's definitely on y'all's lists. I'm not sure what you have to say about it. But he's absolutely a true Jedi for me. I'll try to keep it short because I feel like I wouldn't be able to sing his praises enough in this chat. I feel like that's not my job. The job might be up to the top right of me. But I think that when you say true Jedi, like when those words come to mind, the first thought is always Qui-Gon for me. It's always been. He's not my number 1, but if someone says true Jedi, bam, Qui-Gon's coming to my mind. Even if it's not like this is what I bet. It's just like, it's something like, oh, name the first thing that comes to your head. There he is, right? Why? I mean, the devil's in the details, right? I mean, Qui-Gon really is just the epitome of what a true Jedi should be, which is be wise, be selfless, but also have moments where you can really take a look at what's going on in the present, what could happen in the future. Like, be aware, like Master Yoda always says I should be mindful of the future, but not at the expense of the moment. It's very his first couple lines. His first couple lines in the movie tell you exactly who he's supposed to be. And the reason why he's killed off is because he was too good, man. I'm not blaming Obi-Wan. I love Obi-Wan to death, and I think everyone puts it on Obi-Wan. But if Qui-Gon was around, that stuff wouldn't have happened. It's not because Obi-Wan was there, it's because Qui-Gon was not. And that's because he has a very powerful way that he sees the Force, the role of the Jedi in the galaxy, and how it all connects. And I think that it would be a shame for me to not put him on there. I mean, is he the most powerful? Absolutely not. Is he the first Force ghost? Yeah, like I mean, as far as like canonical wise, yeah, we'll go with that. Like he was the one that learned it. He leads Yoda into learning it. I mean, if that doesn't say what a true Jedi is, if that doesn't give him the credentials, I mean, that might as well be like a stamp of approval from the Guardians of the Whills. Like it's there.
Approved.
Approved. Yeah, exactly. So. And I know that I'm gassing him up a lot right now for a number 4, but he's a true Jedi, and my next 3, I'll feel the same way about. So yeah, that's what I had to say.
Will, why don't you take this away? Qui-Gon Jinn is your boy.
So, I love Qui-Gon Jinn. Like, like you said, Cole. When I think of a true Jedi, at the beginning of this, when I said like the North Star of morals for a Jedi and North Star for role model, Qui-Gon is the bar for me in my personal life, as well as honestly, and I know it's very like YouTube-y, like what if Star Wars? I guarantee you, if more Jedi knew about Qui-Gon after Order 66 and into the sequels and his teachings and everything that Qui-Gon stood for during his life, all of the other Jedi... Here's the thing. We did a top 5, right? If I was to do a Mount Rushmore of Jedi, Qui-Gon is on there, maybe the biggest head. Like...
I thought you were going to say he's on there 4 times.
I was going to say
it's Mount Quimore.
Yeah.
He's just hitting different poses.
It's just him laying down like
one of them is like his stabbed torso. It's not even his head.
Yeah, and there's a highway that goes through his
Oh my god, that's perfect.
It's like the Grand Canyon, but it's half of his body and half his other body. No, but like I was saying, in terms of morals, Qui-Gon he's very high. He's a lot higher on my list for me. The way that Qui-Gon is so himself, the difference between him and Obi-Wan, like you were kind of mentioning, Grayson, Obi-Wan sticks to the book a lot, and it's even we just read The Living Force.
Yep.
Obi-Wan asks questions like he's reading out of a textbook, right? Where he's like, it's that thing of like when you're in science class in 8th grade and you're like, well, what about this? And what about this? And they go, well, it's right there. Just read it. And then you get to college and you take a science class and they're like, well, maybe that's not it. Maybe we should think about it a different way. Qui-Gon is that.
Yes.
Obi-Wan is the guy who's still trying to write all of his notes in his textbook.
Yep.
Qui-Gon is somebody who lives the morals rather than just studies them. And I think that's what puts Qui-Gon so much higher. He physically and metaphysically, once he becomes a Force Ghost, embodies the Force. And when I think of what a Jedi should be, I said the word balance earlier. Qui-Gon is so balanced that literally he was canonically the first person to become a Force Ghost because he was so balanced within the Force that it's not just the cosmic Force, it is also the living Force. And his empathy, his consciousness, and his ability to care about others first. What makes Qui-Gon so cool to me is that if he wasn't a Jedi, and I guarantee you, if he lived and Obi-Wan was the one who died and Anakin was taken out of the Jedi Order and he was not allowed, Qui-Gon would be like, cool, this is the chosen one. You guys can think whatever you want. I'm going to go train the chosen one. And he would leave the Jedi Order because even if he did not have the powers of the Force and the Force so strong within him, he would still be living morally the exact same way as a farmer somewhere hawking beanstalks out in some pasture somewhere. He would be the exact same guy, and that is why Qui-Gon is so much higher for me. Just like the North Star for true Jedi.
That's a good way to
on your
North Star.
Yeah, where is he on your list?
He is number 2.
2.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
I absolutely respect that. Yeah, I think slightly going back to Obi-Wan a little bit, because I was thinking about it, like you can tell that because I hadn't read the Living Force the Living Force, but it's funny that you mentioned with like Obi-Wan taking notes, right? Because you can see that he's taking all this stuff because he didn't grow up being good at this, and you can tell that like in his character to want to be better. It's like, but it's still like a want. It almost feels like, I have to prove myself kind of worthy to be a Jedi, right? But his training from Qui-Gon is always still instilled in him. Something that I very, very vividly remember is that when Ahsoka leaves the Jedi Order and Anakin like shakes his head and runs after her, nobody else moves except for Obi-Wan, and you can see him start to move to go after them. But Plo Koon keeps him behind. That is like the perfect visual allegory for how it was for Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan was constantly torn between like, should I do what I'm supposed to be doing, or should I do the right thing, like my master used to say?
Yeah.
But and like when it came to be that moment, it was a little too late. But I think that influence from Qui-Gon, I think it was still very much felt. I think that just because Qui-Gon was absent, like, and he had passed, who knows? I mean, if let's say, I was gonna say no shame on him, but total shame on him. Let's say Ki-Adi-Mundi was Anakin's master, would have been so much worse. So
It would have been so much bigger.
Yeah. And so you like saying that Qui-Gon is like this North Star of a true Jedi for you, like that's a brilliant way of putting it. Is he the most powerful? Absolutely not. But you don't need to be the most powerful in the world to be a good master or to learn, you know.
You were talking about Obi-Wan's teachings. Truly, I think one of the biggest teachings from Qui-Gon is in the very first Star Wars, A New Hope, when he dies, is when Obi-Wan is willing to give himself up to the cosmic force. That is straight up the consequences of at the end of Kenobi, when he begins on that journey and he learns all that stuff. That is a direct consequence of that. You know, you see the Qui-Gon influence in Old Man Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan, one of the last line that Obi-Wan speaks in A New Hope: strike me down and I will become more powerful than you can ever imagine. The person who taught him that was Qui-Gon Jinn.
Yep.
And it's not because strike me down and I will become more powerful than you can ever imagine, because I will be immortal. I will be one with the Force like Palpatine wants. It's because no matter what you do, I will succeed because I am balanced, because I can live on, and because I've already done the thing that is morally good, and it is standing right there, both of them watching me die, inspiring the people who need to defeat you, Darth Vader. Qui-Gon's name, the first half of his name is literally balanced, and the second half of his name, Jin, in I believe it's I forget which culture, which Middle Eastern culture it is. It means ghost or spirit. Balanced spirit. Like the writings. He is so him. Like if you're like, you see people and you're like, man, that guy looks like a Kyle, and then you meet him and his name's Kyle. Like that Qui-Gon Jinn. He
that guy looks like a Qui-Gon Jinn.
100%. There is only one Qui-Gon Jinn, and to your point, Cole, he needed to die for everything to happen within the story of Star Wars. If Qui-Gon stayed alive, our rooms would not be filled with Star Wars stuff. Because it all would have been chill.
If it was, it would be like vastly different, you know?
Yeah. I think the two biggest what ifs people always ask is, what if Qui-Gon lived, and like it's like, what if like Leia and Luke were swapped or something. Like those are usually like the two biggest ones, right? And that first one is always like, oh, what if Qui-Gon lived? And it was direct, like that round table discussion where Dave Filoni's talking about that. I think it's back from like Mando season 1. He's talking with all those directors. I think that opened up so many people's eyes of like, oh my God, that's what George was doing, dude. That's why it's the duel of the fates. It is the fate of Anakin. So listen, I'm not going to draw on here. I'm going to be honest. I dropped the ball, guys. I dropped the ball. He was not on my list.
Oh.
And here's the thing.
Man.
All right, guys. I'll see you later.
No,
I'll see you later.
I'll
see you later.
That's our second guest ever, probably the last.
I made the list, and I was like, dude, it felt icky him not being on the list, and I was like, but I don't know where to put him, and I was like, I know at the very least Will is going to sway me on this, and Cole, you have also swayed me on this. Qui-Gon, absolutely, and I love Qui-Gon, and I don't really know why I didn't think harder. I just kind of went on instinct. So he's not on my list, but I think y'all make extremely compelling points. I mean, the way y'all have convinced me, I would put him at 2 or 3 right now. Truly, to be honest, at the end of this, I could be convinced to maybe even put him at number 1, but for now, I'm thinking 2 or 3. I cannot add any more on the beautiful words that y'all say.
Yeah, I might want to move him up from 4, but we'll see. At the very least, he's there. And again, Grayson, more to my point of what I had said earlier, it's not that you don't think that he's. It's not that you think he's not a true Jedi, right? It's just that we only got 5, right?
Yeah,
and there's so many Jedi.
I would be solid with him at number 3.
Let's
I'm totally okay with him being number 3 because there's a reason why he is my number 2, and the top 3 are probably where my longest internal arguments were.
Yeah,
Qui-Gon being a reason for that. So if he needs to be at number 3, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna put that on the list. We've got Obi-Wan at number 5, and we have Qui-Gon at number 3.
Yeah.
I guess it's me now. So do I give my number 4 or do I give my number I guess I give my number 5 because you haven't said them yet. So this is going to be shocking to you all that he is this low, but it is not shocking that he is on this list. My number 5 is Caleb Doom, Kanan Jarrus.
Whoa! Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So you are being generous to the tier as a whole, because I was like, I feel like Kanan's gonna be really high on his list, but you're being generous to us, and
listen,
I see.
I truly, maybe I'm not committing enough to my belief here. Honestly, if I had to reform this list and put Qui-Gon in here, I think I'd probably end up moving Qui-Gon up to number 2 and Kanan at number 3, and finding someone else at number 1. I'm curious to see how our personal lists possibly shift by the end of this. But man, Kanan. I mean, y'all, both of you know how much I love this character. Here's what I'll say about Kanan. I think Kanan embodies a lot of traits of a lot of Jedi that we know. I think he is by far, when you think of a lot of Jedi, maybe not as much now, but when you think of Jedi and what they've done, he was probably put in the most unique scenario of all time. The Boken Jedi, as Balin mentions. I think Kanan is the ultimate bounce back story of all time. And I think here's kind of the overarching lesson. He was able to love without falling to the dark side. And I think that is one of the biggest testaments to a Jedi of all time. So, you know, they're taught, like, what kind of, I'm going to echo what Anakin says. He says that they're encouraged to love, and that is true. Empathy is they are to love your neighbor. Truly is the way of the Jedi, and Kanan is able to find not love just in Hera, but also in his family, in being able to train Ezra, this kind of dodgy street urchin kid who is like, I mean, if I was in Kanan's position, what a pain to be able to train Ezra. You know, like, I love Ezra, but Ezra was not, for someone especially like Kanan, where he was a Jedi that he didn't even make it to knighthood. He only made it, he was a Padawan for maybe a handful of years, and then was pretty much on the run. but the Force had a different destiny for him, you know, and he was a catalyst for so much to happen for the rebellion. Truly, without his sacrifices and without what they did, the Ghost Crew, and what he did as a whole, I don't think the rebellion would have got as much footholding as they did. And obviously, like, there's so many people that go into what the rebellion has done, whether it's someone like, you know, Cassian or Jyn or Mon Mothma, or of course our big heroes from the original trilogy. But what's so powerful to me is the arc that he goes through. I think is one of the best arcs, not only for a Star Wars character, but for a Jedi to go through, from a curious Padawan who, I mean, from what we've seen in like what you see in some of the books and the comics and things, he is described as being very curious, and his curiosity is what made him kind of looked down upon by not only masters didn't want to have to deal with someone who was asking so many questions, right? But he was asking questions not in an Obi-Wan way of like, well, wasn't it supposed to be like this? He's asking them because he's genuinely trying to like he's asking them, I guess, maybe more in a Qui-Gon way. And so that's one of the first things. But then going to losing his master and being on the run, and virtually disconnecting himself from the Force. I mean, he's just no longer a Jedi anymore. He is a Padawan survivor who is completely hiding, and you know, there's some points where it is kind of alluded to, I believe, in A New Dawn, that he went through some bouts of alcoholism as well, which I think is so real and so deep, especially like blending that kind of spiritual side of Star Wars with like the kind of scum and villainy, and being like, hey, here's a very real thing that we see these like kind of background characters in Star Wars, like the drunks on Coruscant or whatever. It's like, here's a character that he got thrust into this world, and then he actually got caught up in that. But then, and maybe there's a lot of similarities to a Legends character here, but like Hera was the one that was able to bring him kind of on that path back to the light side and back to the Force. Like when he meets Hera, that's kind of like a wake-up call to him to be like, I need to be doing more. Like, I have this potential and this capability, and of course, like this person is, I want to team up with this person, right? And they find love in each other, and it never drives him to the point of darkness. Like, I think I've always said this, a really good foil to Kanan, obviously not in the show, but is someone kind of like Bo Dakuna from Jedi Survivor, where
I really like that.
Yeah, like I've always thought they're kind of like, and Cal also in some ways, but Bode is someone that, like, I don't exactly know at what point Order 66 happens, but like he finds love, but that love, when like he holds on to that so intently that it drives him to this point of like overprotection and like retaliation, whereas Kanan is able to love his family and let them go, and his sacrifice is a testament to that. Like when he is, and we, you know, Will, we talked about it on that scene breakdown on your channel, which go check out those, by the way. Those are a blast. He's been doing those with a lot of other creators as well. But that is one of those things where like he realizes, like, I love this person, but they have to go on beyond me, and this is the way I do that. And you know, Anakin was so afraid to let go of everything he feared to lose, and Kanan was like, yeah, of course there's I know without a shadow of a doubt there's like Kanan probably did not want to have to do that, right? I'm sure he would want to be with his significant other and with his family and be able to, I mean, he didn't know at the time, but to be able to raise his child, you know, and he didn't get that opportunity, but his sacrifice indirectly causes a major blow to the Empire because it destroys the TIE Defender program, which was going to be, that was what Thrawn wanted to put all of, like, he didn't want to go into this whole Death Star thing. He's like, we need to focus on this TIE Defender project, and they destroy the fuel reserves for that, and it completely just like derails the catalyst of the TIE Defender program. But in the middle there, especially, I think one of my favorite my favorite arcs for him is how much he doubts himself as a teacher. Like he thinks so lowly of himself to be like, listen, I am not capable of training this person. Like, I didn't even finish my own training. How am I supposed to? When he gets that promotion, that guidance from Yoda, his trial, when he confronts that spirit of the Grand Inquisitor and he is promoted to knighthood, like, there is so much growth in between there of where Kanan is at the beginning of season 1 to pretty much the end of season 2. And then, okay, listen. He fought, like, people always forget, Kanan fought Darth Maul just after he got blinded and just done. Like, just mopped him to the, like, he just was like, bye. And like,
it was one of his cleanest moves ever. Like,
just
my man,
sidesteps and Maul just,
my man puts the mask on and he's just like, you know.
He locks in,
like,
bro.
Yeah, he just locks in. Maul wasn't ready for it. Maul, like, total chump material
Like,
in that moment.
There's so many Jedi that, like, you know, like, okay, for example, like Luke getting his hand cut off, you know, like, he's obviously freaking out. There's a ton of emotions going through his head and during this very climactic fight. But, like, Kanan gets blinded and he's, like, disoriented for a second, but he's not freaking out. He's not giving into fear. He's not giving in to anger. He immediately is like, recenter myself, focus, I can beat this guy. And he does. Yeah. And he doesn't let it hinder him. Now, there's a brief point from season 2 to season 3 where he's kind of being a little bit of recluse. He's kind of distancing himself. And very quickly, he bounces back from that. And so, I just think, I've always said this, I will say this till the end of the time, Kanan is a lightning in a bottle character that I think Dave Filoni and that team that did Rebels truly just created a perfect arc for a character. And like I've always said, like, I never have to see Kanan again because what we got for him in Rebels is so good and so much of twisting, like what Qui-Gon does. Like, he is able to challenge these obviously he's in a very specific time period that's unique, and he's not immersed in the Jedi Order, but he embodies so many things about a Jedi. I think patience is one of the biggest ones. Like, he becomes someone who is very impatient to very patient very quickly once he starts on his, and that's something that like his ability to be able to train Sabine with the Darksaber, like he is dropping knowledge on her, and I'm like, this is the guy that only a handful of years ago was just some scruffy looking nerf herder who was gunslinging and didn't even want to pull out his lightsaber, and now he's blinded and able to he's teaching this Mandalorian how to wield this legendary weapon, which also indirectly sets her on the path of where she goes on in Ahsoka. So anyway, all of that is to say, I think Kanan is able to take so much of what would possibly doom a Jedi, and he uses it to his strength. And that only makes him better. And he's not without his flaws. I listed many flaws here, but I'm also not so, like, you know, for me, he is I think I would say he's maybe a little bit higher, but I also recognize that like there is some personal bias in there. So putting my personal bias away, that is why he is at my number 5 and why I do think he deserves a spot on this list. Like, when I think of the handful of canon Jedi that I think are contenders for this, like, compared to all of them, I'm like, I think he at least deserves a number 5 spot. That is my case there.
Man, that is so tough for me. Okay, like,
if I'm gonna be overruled, that is fine. Will, I know he was probably not on your list, and that is
Kanan he wasn't even a number 6 for me. He was a 5B.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly,
yeah.
Kanan was the one that I came into this outside of just your love of him, that I knew that once we started talking about him, kind of like what you said about Qui-Gon, when you're like, I dropped the ball not putting him on my list. I feel that way about Kanan. When you talk about selflessness and when you talk about
selflessness to the point of I mean, earlier I said like there are 3 words and then there are like subsects for those words that are like kind of encompassing.
Mhm.
If selflessness is that word, the subsect to that is sacrifice. And
Yeah.
Kanan embodies what it means to sacrifice so much. I mean, you said it earlier, Grayson, when it came down to the TIE Defender, him saving the TIE Defender or destroying the TIE Defender project because of his sacrifice. And you were like, he didn't want to go. That's why it was cool.
Right.
That's what made it important.
And he still did it without hesitation, right?
If he was like, no, I want to do this, I want to be the one to sacrifice myself right now, it wouldn't have held an ounce of the same amount of importance. And it almost would have been in vain to his family if he was like, no, I'll see you guys, I gotta do this. Like it tarnishes the glow of that moment, from the loss of his master to setting him on that path to the loss of his eyesight. And then immediately, without the loss of his eyesight, that was, I think, the nail in the coffin in terms of being able to then be able to sacrifice himself, which is why it is such beautiful storytelling that's when he gets his eyesight back.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah.
There's
almost like a little gift from the Force.
That's right.
It's 100%. I love Kanan. I think the only thing that holds Kanan back, and it has nothing to do with Kanan as a character, it's more about the environment and the setting that he was in. Kanan is such a good character, however he is such a flawed character because of his settings, because of Order 66.
Yeah
Order 66 gave him the ability to become the Jedi that he needed to be, the man that he was supposed to be, and that who the Force used him to be. But without Order 66 and the amount of grief that he had to deal with in his life, I think that's also kind of what shifted him back for me. I compared Kanan a lot to Qui-Gon in terms of like, well, you don't see Qui-Gon that much in the movies, right? He's only in one movie. But what we know of Qui-Gon doing throughout his life, he was alive for so much longer and he embodied that true Jedi for so much longer. And although he would never be considered a flash in the pan, but because Kanan was his life was so condensed, so much happened in that condensed time, but because he was so condensed and because of the environment that he was forced to thrive in, I think that's what just held me off of the list a little bit more. There's also a word that I didn't put in my top 3. It kind of goes under, it's a subsect of selflessness as well, I think, but perseverance. Kanan is somebody who embodied perseverance towards the end of his life. And did it so well. But the beginning of his life, he was, I mean, not to use this term just because of that's what we know about him from Legends, but he was just kind of floating for a long time out in the galaxy until he was able to find his way with Hera and then the Ghost Crew and then Ezra. Because of that gap of the floating, I think that's why I held him off of my list, because you compare him to somebody like an Obi-Wan. As much as Obi-Wan made bad decisions, right? Throughout Obi-Wan's life, he never wavered from the cause. And although the cause might not be as necessarily, it's hard, it's apples and oranges when you want to compare the nobleness of a cause. It's very different. And although they had different reasons for why they were on that path, Obi-Wan was, in a word, unwavering. And for so much of Kanan's life, he pushed away. And there are other Jedi on my list who I think also embodied that same thing as Kanan, but the way they embodied their true Jedi-ness, for a terrible adjective that you want to put on that, without that floating period, I just think Kanan is so much built on that, where because you said he has the best bounce back story, 100%.
Yeah.
Kanan is one of the best written characters in Star Wars. Like,
Yeah.
it almost, I would say he is one of the best written characters comparatively to a lot of other franchises. Like, if you were to do a draft and Kanan was in there and there was a ton of other IPs in there, Kanan holds his own for a long time in terms of his character arc. But when it comes to the true Jedi-ness, he's got a lot of traits that other characters have. I just think that they, on the slider of build a character, some of them have a little bit higher of those traits for me. But if he ended up on the top 5, would not be mad at all.
I think I get your counterpoints, and I think to me, I view that a lot as strength, like what Luke says, like confronting fears the destiny of the Jedi. Like, Kanan has PTSD. He straight up does. Like, when he encounters the clones, he is like traumatized, right? And that's why he is like so like, get me away from these guys. And I think it's why it takes so much. Like, what I appreciate about Kanan is he can be stubborn early on, but that stubbornness goes away really quickly because he's able to listen to Hera, and he uses that again to like, well, first it's like, okay, we're just kind of messing with the Empire, but like, he's doing these things sometimes to get money, but then it's very quickly to like help out the people on Lothal, of like the people in the Tarkin towns and things. They're stealing this gear for them, and like, and I think like there's also a point in like season 2, he's like kind of hesitant to join with the Greater Alliance. He's like, I don't know, like this is just us, but like Hera kind of whips him into shape pretty quick. He's like, no, we need to be. She's like, we need to be doing more, and finally he's like, that clicks in his mind where he's just like, oh, like I do need to be doing more, like, and it's that push and pull. And I think eventually, like, the fact that he is able to give into that and like use that as a catalyst to make him a better Jedi, I think is what goes. I like that it's not just like, I'm gonna do like, there's a lot of characters that I really like that are the like goody two shoes, like Superman, like Spider-Man. Well, Spider-Man is a little bit different, but like Superman is one that he's like very much like the embodiment of like being noble, like you mentioned. But Kanan is someone that I think he has a little bit of an edge to him, but I think that edge makes him a better Jedi. But I also like, I get that there are other people that need to be on this list. So if he doesn't make it on, that is okay, but that he is still my number 5.
Oh man, it can't be up to me, huh? Look,
I have no qualms about it if he ends up on the list. There are other people on here that if he took the spot of, I'm okay with.
And we still have a handful of spots, and there's a chance like if we put Kanan at number 5, he could get bumped out again,
I mean, when with the situation with me like fighting with myself on the list, like it was really, really hard for me to not put Kanan on the list. Like I'm with Will where it's like a 5B at this point. And it would almost feel disrespectful to say honorable mention because like he should. I mean, like, look, no holds barred. The man is a true Jedi. I think he is like, to me, he's the definition of the Order 66 survivor in the wild, right?
Yeah. He was kind of the OG template for that. Like, I don't think without him, I don't think there would be a Cal Kestis or all of these other people that keep coming into comic books and things.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, like when someone says True Jedi and Qui-Gon comes to mind, the second thing that comes to mind is when Kanan ignites his lightsaber for the first time to like rescue the Wookiees. And like getting up and putting his lightsaber together, and like it's like this member of the old guard like coming back to rescue the world from the clutches of evil. Like that is the courage and the tenacity that befits a true Jedi. And I think just to gas Kanan up a little bit more, I think he's probably one of the most proficient Jedi at working on his feet. I think he is so good in the moment, like just making the quick calls. Like namely, you know, with Maul, of course, like just going, okay, I'm blind, time to square up, you know. He didn't freak out. He bodied that fool, you know, very, very quickly. But I think also I'm trying to feel what was going through his mind when he passes, which is like, you know, he's holding the explosion in the ship and then going, I can't hold both of them, man. And I think that let's put someone else in this situation, hypothetical person, don't even know who they are, someone more selfish would probably think, I wonder if there's a way that I can get both myself and them out. But he was immediately like, I'm not gonna make it. It has to be them. And he just accepted that and pushed. And like that is a true Jedi quality. He's not on my list, and that breaks my heart. I'm not unwilling to change my mind if we get further along and we decide, okay, let's change things up a bit.
Yeah. Very well.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's a snake draft, so that means it's me again. So,
what do you got?
I will present. I'll be honest, the more I talked about Kanan, the more I kind of wish this person was lower. That's okay, though. This is going to be a hot take, and I have my reasons. But I'm going to commit to my instinct. My number 4 is Ahsoka Tano. And my first point here is what I will say is yes, there is that. Yeah, I'm curious what Will has to say. I love Ahsoka. I know there's the whole I am no Jedi. She's a Jedi. I don't care what she says. I don't care the whole I'm not part of the Jedi Order. She still embodies a lot of traits of being a Jedi. I will say, I don't know. After I speaking about so much about Kanan and compared to Ahsoka, I do think I would probably bump Ahsoka down to 5, but I'm going to keep her at 4, mainly because I think the biggest thing that holds her back, again, kind of what you said, Will, of like, is the product of the era that she's in, is that she is so much a warrior. She is a fighter. Yeah. And I think it's a good thing, but I think that holds her back a lot because what we see in the Ahsoka show is all she knows is fight. And that's it. And now, yes, she has empathy. She has a ton of wisdom, right? And she has a ton of talent, but so much of that is contributed to just using the Force and swinging her lightsabers, fighting Mandalorians, fighting battle droids. And that's because she was a Padawan in the Clone Wars. Like, it's not like she had any other choice in the matter. And she was able to leave the Order. But, like, I think the reason she left, like, she left the Order because she realized there was so much wrong with the Jedi. And she's like, she's set on her own path. And, you know, in the Ahsoka show, she's training Sabine to be a Jedi. So I'm like, okay, you are a Jedi. Like, that's what you are. Like, I know you're saying that you're like just because you don't identify with the Jedi Order, you're still doing Jedi things. It's like, you know,
why are you lying? You know,
yeah,
like
it's like, yeah. So I don't know. I love Ahsoka, but I think a good chunk that holds her back for me is kind of her stoicism, and, you know, especially towards what the furthest in the timeline that we've seen in the Ahsoka show is a little bit of her lack of empathy. I think is her lack of patience. But I think that arc that she goes through in episode 5 does help her out a lot. So yeah, she's at my 4 to 5 range. Feel free to convince me otherwise.
I gotta hear Will's thoughts.
Yeah,
man. He's been making faces over there.
I'm gonna wait to talk about Ahsoka.
Okay.
Because Ahsoka is a lot higher on my list.
Okay.
Ooh. Okay.
And Ahsoka is a lot higher on my list.
Okay. So okay, well, she's my number 2.
Really?
Yeah, and it surprised me as well. I really surprised myself with this list. Here's the thing. When I first initially thought of it, I wasn't thinking about Ahsoka. Because, like, when I first think about Ahsoka, I'm like, I think about the aggression, like where's Admiral Thrawn, you know, like kind of. But as we know, all of these characters have their faults. They all have stuff that they're going through, and for Ahsoka especially, there is still a story yet to be told. She has only really just, which is crazy, but she has only really just gotten to the Ahsoka the White phase.
Yeah.
And like, dude, if she is the way that she's been right now, I can only imagine what Dave has in store for her.
Yeah.
But when I think about Ahsoka, I think about like her progression from being a character that got a whole lot of flack. I didn't care. I was a kid. I was like, more Jedi, you know, but she got a lot of flack when she came in. Everybody was calling her annoying, you know. Even Anakin was calling her annoying, right? But she had things to teach us. She had things to teach Anakin. She had like those moments when she's talking to those Mandalorian students about like the ways of political power and
corruption.
And she has all of these wonderful moments where, I mean, if I'm being honest, you kind of see the Clone Wars through what's this?
I don't know. I'm just in so much turmoil. Please continue.
Okay. So when we're watching the Clone Wars, like, I believe that mostly we see it through her eyes. There are a lot of arcs that don't have her in it, but I really feel, because especially we pretty much end it with her, right? Last shot is with Vader, sure, but like we're with her throughout the whole like Order 66 part. She is a person of the people. She has a reverence for the Force, even though she doesn't fully understand it. And she is really, really good at having those moments where she questions the hows and the whys of how things should work. I'm imagining like her talking to Ezra in the World Between Worlds and going like, it bringing him back, like, it's not gonna work. This is not how it's supposed to be. And like her connections with the daughter and with Morai, and like she is so special, man. And I go to think about those moments where she bodies Inquisitors left and right. I mean, I'm imagining the Rebel scene where we're against the, what is it, seventh sister and the eighth brother maybe, and she like turns off her lightsabers and goes like that, and then just catches the Inquisitor lightsaber, right? And then bodies Maul without her lightsabers, bro, and then with Marok, like, just does one clean cut through his. I mean, like, look, it's not all about combat prowess. We've talked about that with Qui-Gon, but I think that she is, no pun intended, a force to be reckoned with that is literally trailblazing throughout the galaxy, that still has lessons not only to teach but to learn. And I just think that she's really, really special, and I wasn't giving her enough credit. Is she as wise as Yoda? No. Is she as worldly as, you know, with the cosmic and living forces Qui-Gon? No. But they weren't always that way either, and I think that she has potential for that. So yeah.
Bro, I feel like such an Ahsoka hater right now, but there's just like, I don't know, like when I look at this pantheon of like true Jedi, I there's just something that I'm like, I need a little bit more to be swayed by her. Like,
here's something, because I had forgotten to mention this. Maybe this will convince you. I don't know how this will convince you, but for some reason it rests in my heart as something very special.
Okay.
It's the last time that Ahsoka talks to Yoda in the Clone Wars. And it's when she's talking to them in the hologram, right? And all of the council members leave. Like, Mace had called her a citizen because she was like, I'm a citizen of the Republic.
All my homies hate Mace Windu, bro.
Right. Like, he's so, oh man. But Yoda stays, and he doesn't call her citizen. He first says, Ahsoka, more to say have you? And then Ahsoka kind of lightens up a little bit, and she's like, no. And like Yoda was like, a message for Skywalker perhaps. She says, no, I'll tell him myself when I see him. And Yoda says, may the Force be with you, Padawan. He gives her the respect because he knows that she's a Jedi, man. Even though she left, he knows that she's a Jedi. And that scene makes me so sad because like his hologram starts cutting out and the motif music starts sounding really sad, and I'm like, oh my god, this is gonna be so bad, you know. But she is just like, she's gone through so much, and she has proven to us that in the face of tremendous adversity, she is still here. And man, I don't know.
So I'm gonna obviously we're gonna wait for Will to speak because he has Ahsoka much higher, and the indication that I have is that she's at number 1, which is probably, yeah, I'm excited to hear that. If that is true. But for now, listen, I tentatively, obviously this because Will still has his point to be made. I am willing to put her, like, I want to put her at number 4, just to have her on the list, because I know I'm going to be overruled here, and that is okay. That is the point of this. But for now, we'll put her at number 4, and we'll see where that lands. Is that fair until Will starts riffing and raffing?
Oh no, that's totally fine.
Okay.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I think that there's a lot to go through here, so I'm strapped in.
I still have there's still 2 that have not been mentioned that I feel must be, and I think we're about to get to them right now. So,
yeah.
Cole, present your number, whatever is next on your line that we've not talked about, I suppose.
Wait, so are we waiting for Will to talk about Ahsoka, or are we?
We are, because we're doing snakes. He wants to wait till we get back to him, so it's back down to you.
Okay. Okay.
Oh wait, when we get back to me, that's when it wouldn't be my next number.
So whenever I mean, it just depends on the line. I'm
Okay.
going from the bottom up.
Okay.
So, my indication is that we'll probably get there pretty soon, and I figured you were waiting until your next platform to speak.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So this was at so this is my number 3 because Ahsoka was my number 2. And this might be surprising, and I'm just gonna tell everybody, this list is gonna change every day. Okay, in my mind,
yeah.
In 20 minutes.
Yeah,
dude.
it's always gonna change. But
Wait for Ahsoka
me-
season 2 to come out next year, and this list is gonna just like Sabine number 1. No.
Yeah, we'll have to do a like an anniversary of it a couple of years down the line to
dude.
reassess.
Yeah, dude.
Okay, so number 3, and this was tough to put him at 3, but I said I went with Yoda at number 3. I think that initially I was actually quite hesitant to put Yoda on the list, specifically because I think, at least for me, something that resonates in my mind a lot is like Yoda's failure of not guiding the Jedi Order in the direction that it probably should have gone.
Mm-hmm.
He accepted that failure, yes, but it was a tremendous failure. He was the head of the Order, and even though when he became Grandmaster status, Master of the Order turned to Mace Windu, and Yoda kind of took more of a back seat, I think that his judgment and his wisdom certainly should have guided the Order properly. However,
I think that's Yoda's lowest, right?
Yes, and to quote Palpatine, like, what gives me pause about that is Yoda's arc in season 6 of the Clone Wars, where Qui-Gon starts showing him about the wills, right?
Yeah, dude.
And Yoda starts saying this stuff. He's like, guys, there's something crazy going on out there, and they're all like. They're all like, damn, he's getting real old. Oh my god, you know? And and I think that like Yoda was able to, I think he started having that moment where he's like, ooh, something's going on, guys. I think maybe we need to change things up a little bit. And you can tell that I mean, it's not like he was just allowing it to happen, but I think something that he had said directly was, we're already in the trap of the Sith. It's too late to subvert it. We now have to see what happens and make the next best move. But when it comes to Yoda being a true Jedi, something that I will always remember is when he talks about the Force in The Empire Strikes Back, and he talks about it a lot. There's a lot to say about those scenes, but specifically, like, when he just says like, luminous beings are we, not this crude matter, as he pinches Luke's shoulder, you know. And like he starts talking about like it's everywhere, the rock, the tree, like between, like like it's everywhere, right? And I think that was when I was a kid, I finally was like, oh, so that's what the Force is, you know. So like Obi-Wan explains it in A New Hope, and like I get it, it's not like it was a wrong explanation, but it's really given a focal point in The Empire Strikes Back. And I think that Yoda, for all of his faults, he really was, as far as a Jedi could go, before becoming a Force ghost, more powerful than you could possibly imagine, right? Like, seeing him like just absorb Force lightning from Sidious, pushing it back, you know, not being beaten, it was a stalemate, I will die on that hill, right? But standing down, like standing up against this this tyrant, and then also accepting that this is my failure, I have to wait the long game, buries his lightsaber, right? Does away with it. And I don't know, man, he really is inspirational to me. I think that Qui-Gon was more wise in terms of the Force, but what is all the more special is that Yoda was willing to accept that. He was like, what do you have to teach me? When Qui-Gon it came to him as this little like wisp.
Yeah.
He was okay with not being the head honcho, because why would he be? Right? There's always something to learn.
Yep.
And I think that even though he did fail, he continues carrying this torch of the Jedi through and through. And does he make the same mistake that Obi-Wan did, where like saying you have to strike down Vader? Yes, he did. But I think that we all have our things, right? I think that when it came to Vader, Yoda simply thought that there was no more hope for the Jedi other than Luke, like facing them down. And I think that
they were right about that.
My God, when he comes back in The Last Jedi, I completely forgot about that. It's just all the stuff that he has to say about failure, and then strikes the tree, and Yoda, and Luke's like, but the ancient Jedi texts, and Yoda says, read them, have you? Page turners, they were not. You know, he doesn't care about the sanctity of these really important books. It's all about your experience as a Jedi and your impact on the universe, instead of sitting in a little hovel with books, because that's exactly what he did. He had to show up and tell Luke, dude, being a hermit doesn't work. You're gonna die like I did, you know. He didn't say it directly, but he was trying to get Luke to get back out there, you know. And he's just very inspirational. Makes me cry every time.
Can I speak very briefly, because Cole just went on a tear, and then Will, I want to let you.
Yeah,
speak,
I'm sorry, that was really tangential, but like hopefully I got my point across.
No,
yeah, loved it.
Yeah. So Yoda is also my number 3, and the reasons he is held back is the first big one is the way he leads the Jedi Order in the Clone Wars. I think that is his biggest flaw. And the second one, which again is more minor but I think understandable, is him and Obi-Wan both being like, Luke, you have to kill Vader, like he cannot be redeemed, sort of thing. That's I think his 2 major flaws. But again, everything, like Empire Strikes Back and Last Jedi are like peak Yoda, obviously, and there is so much, like, Empire is my favorite, and there is so much in there that is just so good that I'm like, this is like, that is, I mean, obviously that's our first introduction, you know, in real life to Yoda, was Empire Strikes Back. And you see where he gets to that point, but like so much wisdom and so much that he has learned, and especially when you get to Last Jedi and to see there's still stuff that he learned from that and was able to teach more lessons. And you know, he says the greatest teacher failure is, and also speaking on students, he's like, we are what they grow beyond. Right? The passing of the torch to your students, and him realizing that, and like, you know, he taught so many of those students, and like his goal is, you know, to pass on that knowledge. So yeah, I think it cannot be a true Jedi list without Yoda. I think it just matters on how much those caveats bring him down or not for you. So Will, why don't you say your piece?
Yoda is my number 4.
Okay.
I love Yoda. I
Yeah.
think in terms of like, I mean, people have done it all throughout the history of Star Wars, but like authors, you can literally write a book of motivational quotes every day, a full calendar just based on what Yoda's teachings are throughout
Yeah.
his time through canon. Why he's at number 4 for me, Cole, you made a lot of great points for Yoda. I think if I had to define Yoda in a trait, it would be wisdom, which I think a lot of people would say in terms of Star
Yeah.
Wars, it would be Yoda. Obviously, he's 900 years old, so like he has the most life experience out of any other character. But why Yoda is so cool to me is because he is a student of the Force.
Yeah. Oh,
Like
that's
you were
good.
saying with in terms of Qui-Gon, he wanted to learn from Qui-Gon. Somebody who he taught Dooku, who taught Qui-Gon. Yoda was the main teacher, like he's the headmaster for 900 years of Jedi.
Mhm.
As much as you can be mad at Yoda for his leadership with how the Clone Wars went and then Order 66 and the Fall of the Jedi, I think there is a point to be said, and I'm happy you brought this up, Cole, where yes, he is. There is a thing of like, hey guys, there's more going on than we know about.
Mhm.
I think there's also an awareness of Yoda where he is a student of the Force in that, oh, I can't stop this. So I have to do the best that I can compassionately for those around me and keep everybody as safe as I can and teach and love as much as I can in these moments while knowing that I'm going down with the ship. And your example of when Yoda spoke to Ahsoka in Clone Wars Season 7 is like the perfect example of that, of like, he's like, hey man, we all know this is going to be bad.
Yeah.
But I just want you to know that I love you and we're good. Like that is Yoda towards the end of his life. And I think the reason why he's at my number 4 above Obi-Wan is, like you guys were saying about the decision to kill Vader. I don't, and this is just the way I think about it. The way I perceive that conversation going of the point of view from Obi-Wan and the point of view from Yoda is Obi-Wan wants Luke to kill Darth Vader. Yoda wants him to defeat Darth Vader. And that's an any means possible situation where if he went up to Vader at the end and was like, he redeemed Vader, which he did. That's what Yoda wanted. He just wanted it to end. He didn't want it. He didn't want the finality of death. Obi-Wan was like, that's where Obi-Wan becomes the book person of, oh, it needs to end? What's the best way to end? Kill him.
Yeah.
That's why Yoda is above Obi-Wan for me. Like you were saying, there are so many great teachings from Yoda that I think the reason why Yoda is on my list, and he was definitive on my list.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because Yoda is always learning, and all the way up until he does present himself in the Force. All of his teachings are about learning. Obi-Wan doesn't really teach Luke that much in his time with Luke. He sends out the training droid in the Millennium Falcon, and then kind of gives him some like one-off like weird Mojo Jedi, like half-ended sort of open-ended stuff where Luke's like, yeah, this guy has been out in the desert a long time. That kind of stuff where Yoda is the teacher. And as much as he is a little weird green guy, there's always so much depth to what he is saying, and you can always take what he's saying on so many different levels. That's why comparatively I kind of put him and Qui-Gon as like they're the motivational guys for me, where like if I was in a room and they were like pick 2 teachers or pick 1 teacher, it would be really hard for me to pick between the 2 of them.
Yeah.
Maybe Qui-Gon just because he's a little bit younger, but like that's my thing of like I don't know where I would
It
go
would be
with that.
tough.
But yeah, it would be
Yeah.
tough. That's my thing, where Yoda is the embodiment of wisdom. He is a student of the Force, and if there's anybody who, no matter where he gets moved around, should stay in the top 5, no matter where he is, it's Yoda. for me.
Yeah, it's really tough to not keep him in there. Really excellent points made. That's very interesting about what you said about how like Obi-Wan wanted Luke to kill Vader. I think it's like I think I'm gonna like try and twist it a little bit here, just because you know how much I love Obi-Wan. Like obviously, like I don't think Obi-Wan's like sitting there, and I don't think that you said this, of course, but I don't think Obi-Wan's going like, man, I just want Vader to die.
No,
bro."
not
You
at
know,
all.
Like
There's just
of
a
course.
finality to Obi-Wan's perspective, and I think
Right.
too in that moment, there's also the thing of like Obi-Wan goes, "Well, then we have truly lost."
Yeah.
And then Yoda goes, "No, there is another." And
Yeah.
keeping the Kenobi series in mind, he is aware of Leia.
Mhm.
He knows that Leia is out there, and that if something was to happen, Leia is a potential number 2, right? But I think
Yeah.
Obi-Wan's perspective is, well, I didn't train her. Master Yoda, you didn't train her, so obviously she couldn't
Yeah.
defeat Vader. However, Yoda is, no, there is another. That's the big difference between Yoda and Obi-Wan for me, is the finality of Yoda and the option seeking of Yoda, where he's always thinking of, well, we could make this work a different way.
It's like,
That's where
there- A new hope will emerge, which ironically Obi-Wan says. But yeah, like what I was my point there was like he was saying strike Vader down because he was like, I already tried. I tried
Yeah.
so many times to bring him back. I've seen what he's done. You know,
Yep.
he's not. He told me himself, Anakin is dead. You know, and so I think that's like I think that's where that comes from, and even Yoda just continues having hope. And that's what a master should do. Like, of course, you can say when the chips are down and like, ah, man, best to call it quits. But I think Yoda continues carrying that torch even long after his death, to come back to Luke to tell him again, like, dude, you gotta wake up, huh? You know, come on, bro. You know, and I think Yoda's just so special, man. Just, very, very well said.
He is the archetype of the old wise sensei, like to a T, you know. And for that, like, just, I mean, with all of his different facets from the original trilogy to the prequels to the Clone Wars to his appearance in Last Jedi, even to like High Republic stuff, like Yoda's everywhere. There's a reason he is the. I mean, I would, if I had to give everybody like a claim or like an accolade, like without a doubt, I think Yoda is the wisest Jedi of all time, at least as far as we've seen. So
can I make one last point about Yoda? And this will be super quick.
Yeah.
Down to his last teaching, at least from us and what we saw of Yoda, my point about him knowing it was kind of the go down with the ship sort of deal. He knew that he couldn't really do anything, but he knew that he just had to kind of let go. His literal last teaching is, we are what they grow beyond.
Yeah.
And that's the entirety of what he had to realize about his leadership in a term about the Jedi Order. And that's the last point I wanted to make about Yoda.
Yeah, I mean that was taught, like Luke immediately like picked up on that.
Yep.
And I'm just gonna say that applies to Qui-Gon, and that applies to Kanan, especially Kanan, like many others. It's always the recognition that your role has been completed. You have one thing left to do, you know, and I think that's like
that's also kind of Ahsoka, like letting go of her past to be able to train Sabine.
Yeah, she's learning that right now, bro.
Yeah, like that was kind of the let go lesson. Anyway,
and I mean, what's insane is that we've got Anakin Skywalker teaching her. So
yeah.
That's a whole can of worms right there,
That
y'all.
is.
I don't know. By Will.
guys is before we figure out the placement right now for Master Yoda. You know what? Actually, I was gonna ask a question. I'll wait. Maybe y'all surprise me. I doubt this will happen, but I'm curious. Okay, right now, temporarily, we have number 3 Qui-Gon, number 4 Ahsoka, number 5 Obi-Wan. Currently, with what we have, is Yoda higher than Obi-Wan?
I agree.
Yes. I don't.
Sorry,
I don't
Cole.
like it. I don't agree with it, but I accept. No. It's actually different. It's like I don't like it. I agree with it. I accept it.
Yeah. Is currently Yoda higher than Ahsoka? I know we
I need to hear Will's pitch first before I can decide on that.
Yoda is on the list, right?
Yoda is on the
Yeah,
list.
for
Is
sure.
Yoda higher than Qui-Gon? We'll just say that for now.
My gut instinct says yes.
Oh, okay.
Because even though Qui-Gon knew some things that Yoda did not, I think that wisdom can be very subjective, and you can be wise in different places that other people are not.
Sure.
As we know, Qui-Gon at one point had to learn the thing as well. It's not like he just suddenly knew it, right? And so, I think that it could also be biased because of just how much of Yoda we've seen and all of the lessons that he's given us. It's hard to say, but my gut says Yoda, and that could change. I could be swayed, but
I'm
think
the opposite.
I'm also the opposite. I think Yoda's right below Qui-Gon.
Yep.
Only
Okay.
because I think of how much Qui-Gon, like Will said, is that North Star, and Yoda
Yeah.
is able to like wisen up and be like, oh, whoa, like, Qui-Gon was kind of cooking, dude. Like,
yeah,
Yeah,
that smells good.
yeah.
Okay, I'm willing to accept that because it's like they're so close for me that it doesn't put that much on me to change. So
Yeah. So I'm gonna put Yoda. It's just temporarily. Yoda will be number 3. Qui-Gon's at number 2. We don't have a number 1 currently, but we
Who's
have
at number 4?
number 4 is Ahsoka temporarily, just because
Gotcha.
I think
Okay.
that's where did you have her at originally, Cole?
I had her at 2.
You had her at 2.
That's
I had her.
awesome.
I had her at 4, and Will has it at some undetermined point. Which I guess that means Will, you have the next 2 slots.
Okay.
So
Got the floor, sir.
So
I'm so excited
I'm
for
back
this.
to back in it right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
My number 3 is Luke Skywalker. I love Luke Skywalker. Y'all know this.
Yeah.
On the bracelet, on the tattoo, there's shelves, there's on even pouring out into other parts of this apartment. My wife is inundated with Mark Hamill's face. I love Luke Skywalker. He was
Yeah.
the first Jedi. He was the last Jedi. And to put a word for Luke Skywalker, his is courage for me.
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker is the hero type.
Yep.
Comparing him to his father, he didn't fall the same way. Anakin was built up on that hero and almost to a point was like, oh, I'm the hero. That's why I should be so good at this. Luke never really was too prideful, I guess, compared to his father, Anakin. Luke, in every situation, was so true to himself, even when he was making the wrong decisions, kind of like Obi-Wan in this.
Yep.
The one line that Mark Hamill hates. Oh, I was going into Tasha's Space to pick some cow burners. Like him being like, no, that's not what I wanted to do. He is so headstrong, like his father, but he's also. We were talking about it in the Tales stream. He's so much like Padme, and when I look at Anakin and Padme, and then I look at Luke and Leia, it's Luke Padme for me, and then Anakin Leia for me.
Yeah.
Luke is such a good example of learning and being the student. That is what Luke's job is. He is the student, right? And I don't mean a student of the Force. I mean a student of his surroundings and failure.
Mhm.
There was a long time where I hated The Last Jedi for what happened with Luke Skywalker, right?
Present.
The older I get, the more I understand how important that is to see Luke as that character and then be able to succeed out of it, get in that situation, because he's always learning. And to bring it back to the whole thing with Yoda, he's always learning in the same way he was on Dagobah, in the same way he was with Obi-Wan, in the same way in Return of the Jedi he was with Yoda, but also Vader. Vader takes that mentorship role for Luke in Return of the Jedi, and even Palpatine. They're all trying to be his teacher, and he's always trying to be the learner. He's always trying to do the right thing, regardless of what it is. Even in Legends, when he's the master, he's still learning, and his ability to be malleable with his surroundings and what his lessons are is why Luke Skywalker is my favorite character, but why he is my number 3, because as much as he is courageous, I think in terms of the decisions he makes towards the end of his life, he has that big sacrifice. He does have all of the circumstance that the other Jedi have of a big moment where they're faced with something, and a lot of them, like Obi-Wan, hermit, like Yoda, hermit, like Kanan pulls himself away floating, like Ahsoka pulls herself away, in a sense, from the time of when we last saw her in the World Between Worlds to Mando, right? All of that, he's had that, but his was so rooted in his own fear, like his father, that I think that's what makes Luke so cool. That's why he's my number 3, because in terms of a role model, he's different than Qui-Gon or a Yoda in terms of who I want to be like in wisdom and morality and stuff like that. But he's, when push comes to shove, if I can eventually make the right decision, that's why Luke Skywalker is so cool to me. And he is, he's the hero, right? Like, you're not going to always make the right decisions. We started this with none of these are infallible. Luke Skywalker is the definition of that. But I think that's what makes him so cool. And that's why he's my number 3. So as of right now, it's Obi-Wan, Yoda, Luke, Qui-Gon. Ahsoka Tano is my number 1. And here's why.
Okay.
If I had to give a word for each Jedi, right? Obi-Wan, I talked about it, perseverance. Yoda, I talked about it, wisdom. Luke, courage. Qui-Gon, being that student of the Force, and also morality. When I think of Ahsoka Tano, she is such an average of all of those. There are so many instances and situations where Ahsoka is met with struggle, where she keeps fighting. And I think what helps Ahsoka in this sense, if I think of all of the time that we've known Ahsoka from Clone Wars to where we see her in at the end of Ahsoka season 1, she never stops fighting, right? She's a warrior. Grayson, you said it earlier. But I think in terms of perseverance, like Obi-Wan, or courage, like Luke, she never stops fighting for the right reasons, as opposed to it just being something to fall back on. Reason why I bring this up is a lot of the way she is in Rebels, right? She has lost everything. In Rebels, she gets to Vader, Obi-Wan, who, then you are truly lost. Then Anakin is really gone. Ahsoka, in the face of Darth Vader, I'm not leaving you, Master. Does not go anywhere. Same thing when we see her again in the World Between Worlds in the Ahsoka series. Anakin Skywalker, her not Darth Vader, not the eye of Anakin Skywalker in there. Anakin Skywalker, the way she remembers him, hasn't seen her master in how many years, decades, is walking at her with a red lightsaber, ready to fight her, and she is refusing, throws away the lightsaber the exact same way Luke Skywalker does in terms of courage. wisdom, she gets to the end of the Ahsoka series, and even, dude, there are so many scenes of her in Clone Wars where she's teaching younglings, like the coolest lessons, and she's a teenager. Like, her
very
wisdom,
what's the word for it? Precocious? Is that what it is?
maybe I don't know. That sounds like a $10 word, and I only got $5, Cole. So I don't know.
Hold on, let me check my bank account.
Honestly, Ahsoka is that was the word.
Precocious, of a child having developed certain abilities or proclivities at an earlier age than usual.
Yep. So much like all of the rest of the Jedi who you can even think of to be on this top 5 list, Ahsoka has been dealt the worst hand. The worst hand. And
Keeps
she
getting the boot.
And she keeps getting back up. It's not why do we follow Bruce? So we can learn to get back up. Ahsoka is so much that character that I think for all of the lessons that we've learned from all of the other Jedi, we have learned those same lessons from Ahsoka Tano at multiple moments throughout her life. And that's why she is at the top. And I think the best example of this, much like a Qui-Gon or even a Luke sometimes, right? Like Luke gets a little bit too into the books later on. The ancient sacred Jedi text! Like Obi-Wan, he's a book nerd. Qui-Gon, he's a student of the Force, but Qui-Gon doesn't have that moment where he pulls away from the Jedi Order. Ahsoka does, succeeds, and continues to teach and learn and be a student of those morals while thinking that she is no longer part of the Jedi Order, right?
Yeah, she continues
all
her
the
own
way up
path.
She creates her own path, truly one with the Force in that sense. Morai is following her around more than just to be her North Star, but to give her that reminder of she is on the right path. It's not who she's following, because Morai isn't flying around and she's just going where Morai goes. When she is in the right moment, that's when Morai appears. So much of her.
It's like a synchronicity moment. Yeah.
It's 100%. It's that reminder of, hey, you're on the right path. And that's why it continues to happen. That is why Ahsoka Tano is at my number 1, because thinking about all of these other Jedi, there are so many moments where I'm like, man, that's what makes them really cool. But you know who else has that? Ahsoka. And literally any Jedi who I can think of, I go, yeah, Ahsoka did that pretty well too. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's why she's at the top of my list. I know that might be a hot take. I know that might be, people are going to say, oh, he's Disney era. It's Ahsoka. He just, Dave Filoni doesn't know all the sludge that can come from an answer like, she's a girl. There's so much sludge that can come from an answer like that. Being the person who's the biggest Luke Skywalker, Qui-Gon Jinn advocate, that is why she is at the top. And I also think, same all the way down, starting from Clone Wars all the way up to her leaving the Jedi Order, there is so much that all of the rest of the Jedi, if they were around Ahsoka for those moments, could learn from Ahsoka.
Yeah.
100%. And that's why she's my number 1. End of rant.
Yeah. That. Oh my God. That was like so convincing for me. I don't know.
I'll be honest. I think your points are great, but it is not enough for me to buy into the fact that she's number 1. And truly the reason is why is I'm like, I think it's because her instinct is so much to physically fight, which is why that holds her back. Like, I feel like it's so much of just like the whole arc in the Ahsoka series is that she is burying herself in hunting Thrawn and physically fighting because she wants to run away from the trauma that she has. And even down to the Clone Wars, it's all she knows is fight. And that's like okay, like Heir to the Empire, obviously not canon. But still, I think about the moment when Luke is cornered by the Nogri, and he does not want to fight them. He does not want to hurt them. Only until he is back in a corner, he was like, there is nothing else I can do. I have to kill them so I can get to my friends, right? It's a last resort where I feel like so much for Ahsoka, and I could be wrong, and I would be more than happy to hear moments of this, but I'm like, when I think of the overarching character, it's whether it's Clone Wars Season 7 or the Ahsoka series or Rebels, it's always her default is punch, swing lightsaber, take him down. Like, and yeah, I know you said, you're like, I won't leave you, Master. Right after that, she says, then I will avenge his death. Fight. She wants to fight him. And I think that's the difference of like the Luke moment where Luke is like, I will not fight you, Father. Yes, he does fight, but then he throws the lightsaber away. And the lesson in Ahsoka, weirdly enough, I've always interpreted it as, is she's like, I won't fight you, but Anakin's like, if you don't fight, you're going to die. That's the lesson. Like the final thing is like she has the lightsaber at his throat, and then she's like, I choose to live. Obviously, it's a more metaphorical sense of like fighting for yourself internally. Not I that's how I've always interpreted. It's like I was like, there is more to fight for. Maybe that's fighting for Sabine as well. There's so much you can interpret from that scene, but I think that's why like I think Ahsoka, with all of your points, could be a strong 3 or 2. I think but like it's for those reasons that I'm kind of like, why I'm like, I just don't know if she's number 1 because of how much of a warrior she intrinsically is, and that could change in Ahsoka Season 2. But I'm curious what you have to say about that.
I think it will change in Ahsoka Season 2 because eventually, knowing my boy Dave Filoni, she is going to give up those lightsabers and get that staff, right?
Yeah, dude.
She's gonna get the staff and completely disregard the weapon in terms of that staff, like a Gandalf, right?
Yeah.
The one thing that I think hasn't been brought up, we see Ahsoka in between the Ahsoka series and in Rebels, and it's in Mando, and she is such a teacher in those episodes. We also see her in Book of Boba Fett, and she's such a teacher in those moments as well, where even though she has the guilt like a Kanan would, or has the fear like an Obi-Wan would, she is still pursuing, and she is still trying to help the galaxy. Ahsoka is always trying to help, and unlike most of the rest of the Jedi on my list specifically, outside of maybe a Yoda when he leaves himself, he kind of like Luke, they end up, what's best for me right now is leaving, right? And it helps my case that we don't really know what happens to Ahsoka between Rebels and Mando, right? It helps my case because if she goes full hermit, it does kind of put her in that same category, even though I still think she has all the rest of that perspective. But my assumption during that time, knowing how she was when we last saw her in Rebels, of she just died, right? Yep. Like she died and was brought back in I don't know.
She also died. She died in Clone Wars as well.
She died in Clone Wars. Every time she's brought back, what does she immediately do? She starts helping and teaching, dude. Like immediately with Ezra, I want you to know that what you're doing isn't the right thing, because if I could do it, I would, but I won't do it. Mm-hmm. If I could see,
she also pretty much dies in Ahsoka.
Big no.
She keeps dying.
Seriously, her lesson to Ezra is, if I could do the thing that you want to do, I would, but I know I shouldn't, and that's why I'm not going to. And I think that's where her guilt is when it comes to where we see her in Mando and up until the Ahsoka series. Her stoicism isn't it's not her pulling back. It's her, to your point, Grayson, where she's so much of a fighter. In a lot of Rebels, as much as she is fighting, it's a kid's cartoon. Like, that's what Star Wars is. Like, there has to be the cool lightsaber battles, right? Right. Ahsoka does so much teaching throughout Rebels, and then when we see her in the Ahsoka series, I don't think her stoicism is from the sense of, I'm going to go in guns blazing. Anytime she pulls out her lightsabers, she is provoked. She's not Anakin, where she's going in guns blazing.
Yeah.
Where she has to stab first. Like your point, Cole, and I'm so happy you brought it up. She puts away her lightsabers and waits for the Inquisitor to strike first and then does it. Literally, you strike first, a Jedi for defense, never attack. And anytime, and she knows how to slice and dice, dude. But anytime she does, it is because she is provoked. She is never the one to take out her lightsaber first. In Mando, when she is in the woods, it's because they are looking for her and they are shooting at her. In Rebels, it's because they come after her first and it is defense. In Clone Wars, it is always defense. It is never, I need to kill this guy. Anakin does all the time. But Ahsoka, who watched Anakin do that, through her adult life and adolescence and as she got older, learned that that wasn't the way to be. And that's why the "you must always fight" lesson is so cool to Anakin, so cool to me, because of what he's trying to teach to Ahsoka, is because she's at the point where she's like, that's what you did. I don't want to be you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Anakin's going, no, I don't want you to be me. I want you to be you, because you have never stopped fighting. Not with your lightsabers, but with your perseverance and your will. And that is why Ahsoka is so dang cool and at the top of my list. Now, she could be wherever you want on this 5. I totally get it. I think she is at least a 2.
Yeah.
But that is why she is my number 1.
So I completely agree with you, and I think that swayed me a lot. The only thing I will disagree is for the majority of Clone Wars, it usually is attack. It's never like, okay, Maul, she was going after him first. He did not pull out his lightsaber. As soon as he says, I did this so I could kill Anakin, she immediately pulls out her lightsaber, right? She's the one who wants to swear down.
You could argue that
he dices up all those Mandalorians. I know she doesn't kill all of them.
You could argue that she pulled out her lightsaber in defense of her master and all of the other clones. Like when she takes out her lightsaber and she's going after Maul, it's because she's looking for him. And she doesn't kill Maul. She imprisons him.
Yeah. Yes,
Cole. I'm so respectful of everything.
And she saves all the clones too. God.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So that was what I was waiting to say, which was that Rex says they are willing to die in order to kill you, and she says they may be, but I'm not going to be the one that kills them. They are good men.
Dude. No. Oh God, you're so right.
and look,
where's the camera? Right there.
Yeah, I mean, look, Grayson, you are so right in that she is an innate fighter. She was born and trained to kill in the middle of a war. Even Anakin wasn't. Anakin said, when I was a Padawan, we were keepers of the peace. But Ahsoka was born within this wartime, trained to kill. She was told time and time again by Anakin, by all of her masters, by her experiences alone, if you don't fight, you're going to die. And so that's all she knows. And so even though she still has those moments where she has to kind of get past that impulse, that's a part of her arc. It's not done yet. It's still happening. And with and she, I think she learned it the most with Balin, and then when she quote unquote died and Anakin trains her, she throws the lightsaber to the side. A very important thing is that they Sabine's we have to go after Thrawn, and Ahsoka's our role in that is over, our place is here.
Bingo.
And I still believe I still believe that for me Ahsoka's number 2, but I agree with everything about that. She's complicated, but she is a true Jedi in her own way. Even if she says that she's not, she knows she is. Yoda knows that she is. We all know that she is.
To double down on the lesson that Anakin was teaching her, why it's so cool also is Tales of the Jedi, that whole episode where he's teaching her to fight so that she can save herself if something was to happen. And it ends up being the reason why she survives Order 66 with all of the clones. Not necessarily just because of the keep fighting, I'm going to keep swinging my lightsabers, I'm going to keep dodging and swiping off these blasters, but because she continues to persevere That's why that lesson is so cool, is because all of the teaching that Anakin, the swashbuckler, the hero, the chosen one, his example was to always keep fighting. And Ahsoka took that rather than, I'm not going to be you, to the point where she throws away her lightsabers. But that's where Anakin, the Force, whatever you want to call it, the world between worlds, even if it wasn't really Anakin, why when Anakin is there as a Force ghost, that he's been Darth Vader, he knows he has to live with the idea that he destroyed the galaxy. It was his fault. But he sees Ahsoka and gives the smirk because he's like, at least I did that right.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. That's
Okay.
I hate how that emotional that's making me.
The last thing I'm gonna say, if Ahsoka is number 2, who is number 1?
That is the question, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So your 3 was Luke.
Yep.
And who was your
3
2?
was Luke, 2 was Qui-Gon for me.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's figure out. Let's move Ahsoka up on the list before we continue further. So currently, Ahsoka has to go up higher. I am convinced. Well done, Will. I don't know if you are convinced, Cole.
Oh, she was already at 2 for me. I'm okay with that.
So we have okay. Well, we have to at least move her up to 2.
And let's go. I think it might be easier if we go under Ahsoka right now, just to figure out, because then that number 1 spot, and we got to fill that number 1 spot. So who's it going to be?
Okay.
I got an idea. I'm just saying.
Ooh, Cole.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the one thing I haven't said yet. So
okay, is Qui-Gon is Obi-Wan is under Ahsoka?
Yeah.
Is Yoda under Ahsoka?
Yes.
I think so.
Yes, I agree.
Yes.
Is Qui-Gon under Ahsoka?
Yes.
I think so.
It's
I
you notice the more that you say, the slower my yeses get because it's getting harder.
You're like, yeah.
But
Qui-Gon is the one that is hardest for me, but I think because there is so much that you presented, Will, about Ahsoka. Like, I think
Ahsoka
right.
is also, like, if you wanted to come from it at like a practical reasoning, like Ahsoka is at such an advantage because she's like one character who we've seen through pretty much every era of Star Wars.
Yeah.
So like Qui-Gon, we really didn't see that much of, which is to Qui-Gon's, like, to show how cool Qui-Gon is, that he's still so high on the list. Like, that's awesome. But I think where Ahsoka, as much as it is, and I don't want to say it's unfair, but there's also the thing of, like, she's been given more opportunity to succeed. That's why those examples are there.
Right.
I'm just saying, objectively, Dave likes using her as a character a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
Ahsoka
is like Dave's baby, you know?
Yeah, and like, I'm fine with that. And like, it's all good. She's a great character. And it's probably because, like, she keeps showing up in all this stuff and having the best arcs, right? And I will continue to be seated. So
I do think we are approaching maybe the end times of Ahsoka, at least, like, in terms of, like, maybe
I cannot wait. I hope we see her end soon. Truly.
Because that's like with Kanan, right? Like, I talk about, like, that arc is so perfect that I'm like, would I love for, like, his voice or something to, like, speak to Jason or to Ezra? Like, doesn't even have to show up. Yes, I would love that. But that would be more for Ezra rather than for Kanan, and I think that's fine. But, like, that arc is done, and that's why I think, like, truly, I think Ahsoka is the first best character that Dave has created, and I think Kanan is the second best character. But Kanan is just so much shorter lived, and I think Ahsoka is more for the long haul because of her genesis in Clone Wars, now up to all the way her own show. But
if they stick the landing with the way that Ahsoka's ending is, right? They stick the landing with that, and even if we do see her end, we could see her in other media. She'll pop up throughout, and they could still continue to fill in those gaps. But when we end up seeing the end of Ahsoka, if they stick the landing like I trust Dave Filoni to do with his number 1, you're going to be hard pressed for me to find a better story from entrance to exit than Ahsoka Tano.
Yeah, she really has just as a Star Wars character really been through this like incredible gauntlet of a storyline. And also been like this really great connective tissue throughout eras. So I think that, oh my god, like I'm just trying to, I mean, like imagine if like she played like a kind of like how Yoda does in The Last Jedi, where like maybe just as like a Yoda role, like when her story's said and done years down the line, she just shows up to give advice and goes. That's it.
I would. There's one thing where like, yep, if somebody wanted to be like, hey man, you get one key jingle, what do you want it to be?
Key jingle.
Give me old Ahsoka, and it doesn't even have to be a Force ghost, right?
Yeah.
She can just be old lady, Togrutta, the way that the old grandmother woman looked in the Tales of the Jedi.
Yeah.
It could be that, where she's old and she's just robed out, all white, Morai sitting on her shoulder. She is just wise old woman, right?
Yep.
And her just comes in, gives her the 2 lines, and then that's it. And here's the thing. I think it's going to happen because there's always that thing of the Rise of Skywalker where Dave goes, well, you know, there's no one saying that it was a Force. There was a Force ghost Ahsoka saying that. Like, I love that. And I think there's so much more to Ahsoka's story that we're going to get in Ahsoka Season 2. Depending on how the rest of the Star Wars stuff goes, Ahsoka Season 2 might end up looking a lot different. But my thing is, if there's one thing I trust Dave with, it's Ahsoka, because of all of the planning he's done. Dude, anytime he posts concept art of just like a little doodle of Ahsoka, I'm like, we're back, dude.
That one sketch that he did of her and Sabine climbing that mountain was from almost 10 years ago, dude.
Yep.
10 years ago. And he's now finally putting that story into effect. I'm like, he has had a vision for so long.
That's why I trust it,
dude. Time to perfect it. So I trust it. I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
So many people were mad about the sequel era, which whatever. But so many people were when they talk about the sequel era, they're like, "Oh, they didn't have a plan." If there's one thing that somebody has a plan of, it's Dave Filoni with Ahsoka.
Yeah, Dave's got. Hey, and he's the what, like, creative exec now?
Yeah,
it's like
CCO, creative.
Yeah, it's like chief creative officer.
Like
and we're here for that, and we like that because he makes good stuff. So
I would be. My belief is that he is actively hard at work trying to kind of conclude Ahsoka's character, and I think once that happens, we will start to see more of the effects of his creativity bleeding into other things that are. I mean, obviously, he's already got his hands in that. Like when he was at that that creator roundtable for the Acolyte. Like obviously, like he was giving Leslie Headland advice and to all of these other directors like Bryce and Rick. Umaya and Deborah Chow, like all those people have been so cultivated by Dave, but that is a completely different discussion when leading up to Ahsoka Season 2, which we're obviously very excited about. So Cole, let's take it to you, because I think you probably are gonna round us out here, I'll be honest.
Okay. Yeah. Look, I'm willing to change my mind about this. But it's really, really tough for me to switch this around. I'm not saying that they're perfect, but there's only one character that feels like the true Jedi #1 spot for me, and it has to be Luke Skywalker. I can't say otherwise. Look, Ahsoka is my #2, and she has done so many incredible things. And I'll say, Will, your pitch almost made me bump her up.
Dude, and I'm fine if Luke is #1, dude. You think I'm not?
No, I just I just wanted to say like how convincing it was to almost get me to take Luke down a notch. And like for me, like of course we know Obi-Wan's my favorite Jedi, but Luke is the Jedi, man. Like, he's the first one. I mean, like, sure, like, Obi-Wan's the first one that we are technically introduced to, but if you really want to think about it, you know, like, Luke, you know, Luke, like Luke's, his hero's journey, the refusal of you know, the call to action, the refusal of the call, stepping up to the plate, facing his destiny, crafting a new sword, you know. And then, even though another thing to Will's point, like, I originally also hated what happened with The Last Jedi, but as Luke had to grow, so did I started
Bingo.
to come around to, your heroes are not always perfect. Your life after the big events are not always perfect. Things are going to come up. Things are not going to be the way that you intend them to be. And what did Luke eventually do? When I think about Star Wars, and I remember the first, like, little thing you see a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, it is meant to believe that it is within our universe and that these are tales that have passed their way to us. If there is one word that has passed its way from their galaxy towers, I believe it is Skywalker, and I believe that it does not come from Anakin Skywalker, it comes from Luke Skywalker, because Luke Skywalker is a living legend that went to the Death Star, faced down Palpatine and Vader alone, and came back alone. And then, after his legend was told, 30 years down the line, when the Resistance was at its last leg, he appeared out of nowhere. There was open fire from all of these walkers that would have obliterated any man, would have obliterated even the great Darth Vader, as some would say. But Luke, as they say in the legend, shrugged it off. He faced down their leader and disappeared, and solidified himself as a living legend in the last shot of The Last Jedi once again, with that little kid wanting to be a Jedi and be something, like, make something for himself, go somewhere great. Luke is a true Jedi. I mean, like, I feel like when he died, like, you see the the Lego Star Wars, like, it just comes up to True Jedi at the end.
Yeah.
But that's just what he is for me. And I could keep talking. I could talk about how he turns around at Palpatine, throws his lightsaber to the side, and says, like, you failed, Your Highness. I'm a Jedi like my father before me. He is the only one out of him, Obi-Wan, and Yoda that was like, I can save my father. He is one of the only people that has stood in the same room as Darth Vader and had more aura than him when he went to go see him in Endor before they flew off to the Death Star.
Yep.
Luke was owning that room. Even Vader was like, that name no longer has any meaning for me. Shut up, man. Like, he got on his nerves. He brought back Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one. Look, Anakin was the chosen one. We know that George said it, but I think Luke finished the prophecy. It was only Luke that was able to make sure that the chosen one saw it done.
Yeah.
And that is what a true Jedi does. We have our own failures. We make mistakes. We have impulses that makes us think that we can stop terrible things from happening, and they will pass like fleeting shadows when we are left with shame and consequence. But we learn those things and we move forward, and we prove to others that there is still a Jedi out there, and I am not the last.
Can I
Number
add
one.
one little thing to your point as well?
Yeah, go ahead.
I've been a big defender of this, and I've gone on many essays on different people's podcasts and things, but he is also the reason, him and Leia, but his name, right, is the reason Rey takes that name, because she knows how much impact that name has across the galaxy, that the legend of Skywalker cannot die where it did. It has to continue forward.
Mm-hmm.
And even if she is not the biological Skywalker, that she is the daughter of some strandcast of Star Wars Satan, that she was trained by those people because she knows how big of a deal Anakin and then Luke and the rest of that family means for the galaxy. And I think the culmination of that is with Luke, right? And like you said, Will, Luke is the hero archetype, you know? And he is not without his flaws. I think about my favorite heroes outside of Star Wars, right? And what makes a good character, I will say this till the end of time, and I think it is what makes people grow, and what is good writing is bringing a character up and tearing them down and building them up again. And that makes them stronger. That makes the foundation stronger. Spider-Man is my favorite character in the history of ever, okay? And there is so much that he does wrong, and he keeps getting back up, and he does the right thing. And I'm not saying that like Luke Skywalker is like equivalent to Spider-Man. I actually, when Will was talking about Ahsoka, I was like, yo, Ahsoka's kind of like Star Wars' Spider-Man. But anyway, in terms of like how much she's in.
Yeah.
I get the feeling.
But still, like, I know it's hard to see your hero, like a hero that has. Luke went through, he was torn down, and I think when the final end cap is like that, is that moment where he does that, it's hard to see 30 years later, like, oh, he would have done that. And that's a hard pill to swallow because you're missing so much. Yeah, but it's still like, over time, we will get more stories to fill that in and whatnot. And I do think over time, again, as I've gotten older, I'm like, I understand why I think that was important. Like, back to Spider-Man, Into the Spider-Verse, Peter B. Parker is an extremely potent example of like a parallel to Luke, where like he just wants to go home. He's like, I'm done with this. He got fat. He's eating pizza. And he's pretty much lost everything. And he's just like, screw this kid. I'm going home. I don't care. But then he still ends up doing the right thing. And he bounces back from that. And I think that's so similar to Luke. Yes, Luke was my number 2 originally. Obviously, I mentioned very early on that like my Obi-Wan and Luke were like the ones bouncing back between 1 and 2. Obviously, Obi-Wan's a lot lower now, which I think I'm fine with. But now I do think, it is for me, Ahsoka and Luke are like bouncing back between 1 and 2 because of different reasons for me. Yeah. I do think they are the top 2, and it feels like we all agree with that. It's just a matter of who goes above who.
I'm in agreement.
At the beginning of this, I was like, this will change in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
This is where I spent the most of my time. It's between Luke and Ahsoka, and you don't have to convince me that Luke's number 1, because I'll go to sleep, wake up tomorrow, and be like, no, it is Luke. And then 2 days later, I'll be like, come on, it might be Ahsoka. And then it'll be a weird raining Thursday, and I'll be like, it might be Qui-Gon. But honestly, the reason, all of the reasons for Luke are why, for me, and to use the Kanan thing that you said of like, he's my favorite. Mm-hmm. But there's that point of me where I'm like, am I just being clouded because he is my favorite? That I'm like, maybe I shouldn't. He fell at number 3 for me only because I feel like if Luke and Qui-Gon were in the room together, Qui-Gon, there would be so much to learn from Qui-Gon for Luke.
Oh yeah, dude.
Where like it would I think like if Luke talked to Qui-Gon's Force Ghost 4 times before the sequels, I don't think the sequels would have gone the way they did. Because
I want to see a conversation between them.
There is nothing I want more in Star Wars than that, than Ahsoka meeting Leia on screen, and then
my God,
what the conversation was between Ahsoka and Luke when they first met about Anakin. Those are the big 3 for me.
Yep.
I have to see. I really want to see Luke talk to Force Ghost Anakin. I really do.
That too.
But then also
it's
like
funny how they all kind of swirl around the same 4 or 5 characters.
Yeah, might as well just put them all in a room and just start talking to each other.
Yeah. They should do their own directors roundtable like they do for the Mando
Oh my
series.
God,
They're all sitting there as Force Ghosts. But honestly, when I said if Ahsoka is number 2, then who is number 1? Like I said, you don't have to convince me that it's Luke Skywalker.
I wanted to say, I wanted
it's
to do
tough because I'm really just between y'all right now. General Grievous number 1.
Yaddle,
dude. Hey, Yaddle's kind of goated, bro.
Dude, Yaddle's thick.
Like she's like the little bit living Force and then Tales of the Jedi. Dude, Y'all were spitting.
Let's go from bottom to top.
Okay.
What do we got?
Can I also say this might make Cole a little upset. I am totally okay with Kanan being in the 5 spot instead of Obi-Wan. Totally fine with that. Sorry,
I
Cole.
cannot. I love Kanan. I cannot let Kanan replace Obi-Wan. Like
That's fine. That's
fine. Dude. I love you, Kanan, bro. Like, I really wish you were there. I really wish you were.
He's got that 5B sauce, dude.
I know. Like, yeah. It's funny because like Kanan is my favorite and Obi-Wan is Cole's favorite, and we're always just like, oh yeah, we're just like dapping each other up of like Kanan, Obi-Wan, yeah, bro. Okay, so number 5 is Obi-Wan. Number 4 is Yoda. Number 3 is Qui-Gon. Number 2 is Ahsoka, and number 1. So obviously we can move any of these around as we please. I'm pretty comfortable with 3 to 5 right now.
That is so insane. One thing I wanted to mention is that Will and I picked the same characters. And another thing is that this list is exactly the way that I planned it to be, except Qui-Gon and Yoda are swapped. But I'm more than fine with that.
Yeah.
So I'm a happy little guy.
I knew there was going to be a ton of
Hey,
crossover.
Cole,
Yeah.
the exact same thing for me.
Well,
That is-
because Qui-Gon and Yoda are swapped.
Yep,
Oh my
the
God.
the exact same thing for me.
That's
That's insane.
crazy,
I love
dude.
that.
And then like an hour before this, I was like, wait a minute, and I was just sitting on a notepad. Just,
This could be a good time to mention what are the honorable mentions that you really wanted to get in, but you just couldn't do it.
Oh,
Because I have a couple. I really wanted to put Rey in the list, but I couldn't. I couldn't do it because of just some lingering feelings about the sequels. You know, don't hate them, but I want to see more. Like this.
I
this
just
Rey
need
movie, like, I wanna
more.
see
Yeah.
more
Right.
of her.
I don't think there's enough of those lessons that we get, like what we get with Yoda and Luke. But Rey was my honorable mention as well. And also, now there's no, again, this is definitely an honorable mention. Like there was no way he was making it to the top 5, but Plo Koon.
that's bingo.
Oh yeah,
Really?
Yep,
Really?
that's who I had right under Kanan. It was Kanan, Plo Koon, Rey, and then I forget. There was one that I was like, maybe, but
Yeah.
Plo Koon was my. There's an alternate in there. We're building a basketball team of Jedi. Plo Koon's on the bench. He's getting warmed.
He's on the
up.
bench
Oh
right now.
yeah, dude. Yeah, dude. There's a reason why Dave loves him.
Yeah,
A strong contender for me was actually Ezra. I
yeah.
really
That's who it was.
Yeah, especially like given how he is in the last scene of Rebels, but then also how he is in the
Oh my
Ahsoka
God.
show.
So sick.
Like just with just using the Force, right?
I'm
just
so
felt
excited to see more of him in like the post-modern kind of era. Like now that he's off Peridia, like
Yeah,
what's he gonna be doing? Is he gonna meet up with Luke, bro? Because
he's
they're
kinda,
both.
No, I photoshopped that image months ago, dude.
Yeah, you did.
Ezra's in that same boat as Rey of like if I saw more of the teacher side of Ezra, he would be
Oh my
way
God.
farther up there.
If we get a scene of him teaching Jason, like Ezra's shooting up, bro. Like it's like insane. Like that for me is like that is what I need. Like I need Ezra talking to Jason to be like, "This is your dad. He taught me." Like, because they never met before, bro. Sorry. I'm so pumped for that. Please, Dave, cook.
Another just something that was sitting in my mind, but I knew I would never put on the list because he's going through a lot right now. Is Cal Kestis? I really love Cal, but he is struggling right now. And I need to see what happens with his character arc before I can determine.
I think what we've seen with Cal so far is a more intensified issues of what I have with like what I originally had with Ahsoka of like he is a more aggressive version of Kanan.
Yep.
You know, where and like again, like I think there's also a ton of parallels between Cal and Kanan.
Yeah,
and this is pure fan service for me, bro. But I'm not gonna lie, if there's more to Cal's character in this next game where he starts to slip more to the dark side, depending on the timeline, I would love if somehow they met the Ghost Crew. Like my pipe dream is on like a boss fight against Kanan, where Kanan is like, bro, you're like, because there's this big headcanon out there that Kanan and Cal were actually friends. Like they were like
Ooh.
two of the only people that like actually
it
like,
would totally line up and make
they're
sense.
like
would
the
make sense.
same age.
Yeah. He's
Yeah,
in like that
um,
same like like almost close to Ahsoka like
Oh,
age
that
there.
that's the three right there. It's Ahsoka,
Yeah.
Cal, and Kanan, where they're kind
Yeah.
of just like they're all
Yeah.
kind of swirling around each other as that boat. Ezra too, but later. But I mean, it's obviously later on if you're going to talk about like Order 66 survivors that ended up having to fend for themselves and make a name for themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
All of the characters who are kind of, except for Kanan, who are in that especially Plo Koon, in that like honorable mention, like who would have been the alternates for this
Mhm.
list of, hey, maybe they're in their conversation, but they're not necessarily going to make the list. It's
Yeah.
all because I wish I saw more of them.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Plo
100%.
Koon, I talked about it with Hannah. So underutilized as a character. He's great when he's used, but I just
Yeah.
wish we saw more of him. Obviously Ezra, need to see him as a teacher.
Yep.
Rey, need to see her as a teacher, and I am so stoked for that movie, dude.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can't wait. Cal, like you were saying, Cole, the way this third game shakes out, and seeing him later
Yep.
on, very excited to see if it goes the way that I'm assuming it will, because it's Star Wars and it ends up being like a Luke Skywalker situation, because he is so kind of Luke-esque to the point where like even in the marketing it was Mark Hamill teaching Cal what to
Oh,
do
yeah,
for the
yeah,
second
yeah.
game, like
Loved it.
and down to the actors both playing Joker at one point. Like there's so many parallels between the two of them. But like the way this third game shakes out, I need to see that. And then the only one there is Kanan, who we saw a full definitive story for, and that's why I think he's my 5B.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You want
Yeah.
to? Okay, I have one last, and Cole, I know you're going to agree. I'm curious how you feel. Will I truly an honorable mention? Not close to like to a 5B, but Seer Junda.
Oh my god. You're so right for that.
We don't get enough time with her, but I do think she, like, her arc from Fallen Order to Survivor is really good. It's just she
the
kind of
character
serves.
glow up between those
Yeah.
two games turns into
Like you.
she is a true Jedi. She's not on the
And
list.
she
but
helped
she's a true Jedi.
she helped a ton with the path. Like
Yeah.
that would not have happened without her. And I think I just forget about Seer all the time. But after playing, I was like, dude, like I didn't really. I'll be honest.
Seer's great.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna say Jilly Bindo.
Oh yeah.
See, okay, if we were going non-canon,
Yeah.
but like we got,
Yeah.
I'm like, I gotta like that's a whole other can
Yeah.
of worms. Yeah, dude, Jolie is goated. Okay, we've got our honorable mentions out of the way. So for me, I think really it's these top three of the Qui-Gon, Ahsoka, Luke ranking. I do think for me it's Luke and Ahsoka in the top two and Qui-Gon at 3. Qui-Gon is very close. Like if you took one of them out, Qui-Gon would obviously I think he would be a number 2. I think you guys sold me on that like so well. It's just a matter of, I mean, it's up to like a dice roll at this point. Like I think I lean slightly towards Luke, but again, like what you said, Will, like if Ahsoka was number 1, I'm like, yeah, I buy it. I buy it now.
I think the way you listed it is how I feel at the moment, where it's Obi-Wan, Yoda, Qui-Gon, Ahsoka, Luke.
Yeah.
Is that what we're doing? Luke number 1?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think we are in agreement, fellas.
What if I was to say that entire Ahsoka rant was just to mind wipe you guys into putting Luke at number 1?
It was like a diversion.
It was just reverse
It
psychology.
works.
Yeah.
Or like actually just subtly planting the seeds in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
We like see on your Instagram like a reel that pops up 5 minutes later that's like, here's why Ahsoka is the worst Star Wars character.
Here's how I tricked these two nerds into thinking.
I did an experiment for 2.5 hours to prove people that Ahsoka is actually good.
The thumbnail is me like this.
Devising. Yeah. So we have our list. Number 1, Luke Skywalker. Number 2, Ahsoka Tano. Number 3, Qui-Gon Jinn. Number 4, Yoda. And number 5, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I'm so glad he snuck in. I'm so happy
He
about
did.
that.
He made it in. He made it in. Don't worry, Cole. I'm just gonna go cry
that's why
myself to
he's
sleep
the GOAT.
tonight because I guess Kanan sucks. I'm just kidding.
Dude.
No. Even me, like looking at this list, I was like, yeah, like he's just that short of the cut.
Yeah.
But let us know in the comments if you agree with us, if you disagree with us, what your personal list is. I would love to know if there's anybody that we just straight up didn't mention that you're like, no, they're in the top 5. Please let us know. I'd be very curious. But I knew there was going to be a lot of crossover as we made these, because I was like, I think we all are like at the same mental state of like, yeah, these are kind of the group of the people. It's just a matter of like, do they go over this person for what reason, or are they lower because of these flaws and things?
Yeah.
But I'm very happy with the list, and I'd be really curious to see after Ahsoka season 2 or Jedi 3, the game, like what characters possibly elevate. Or maybe Ahsoka season 2, Ahsoka just sucks and she just tanks, you know? I'm just kidding. That would be insane. That would be
so much
insane.
Imagine. Oh, I don't even want to think about that.
Before we wrap up, since we have a guest, we gotta get him in on it. We have our chat pack question.
Jetpack.
So, Will, I'm gonna give you like a number between 2 and 124. Give me a number.
3.
Nice. Keep playing it safe.
3 is there. 3 is there. Don't worry about it. Wow. Well, I think this is a pretty good question to round out the episode. What is your favorite quote from any Star Wars movie?
Oh my goodness.
I already know Will's.
Oh man.
Go ahead and plug the catchphrase, buddy.
Your focus determines your reality, baby.
There it is. There
Oh
it is.
man.
Before
Had to
we
get it in
leave,
there.
truly to the both of you, thank you so much for having me on to do this. I've been
Thank
very
you.
vocal to you, Grayson, and then to also like in the our little group chat of our friends. I'm also very vocal to like everybody else. The episodes and the conversations that you guys have between the two of you, it truly inspiring, exciting, and so much fun and entertaining to listen to, that I'm very honored to be a part of the history of this show.
Thank you, man.
It's
We're
been going on
really
for a
happy
lot
to
of-
have you here.
I seriously, like, thank you so much for trusting me with being on this, because when Grayson initially was like, oh, we'll have you on at one point, I was like, please, I don't know if that's because what you guys have is so cool in terms of conversation and what you guys represent as Star Wars fans, that I'm very appreciative that you let me in on this. So thank you guys a lot.
Dude, that
I'm-
that means a
look-
lot. You have been extremely supportive, and we don't deserve all the praise that you give, but that means a ton. And I'm just happy that you are willing to come on. And for anybody who is somehow subscribed to us but not subscribed or following Will,
Follow Will, of
absolutely
course,
do so.
guys.
I will plug all. Yeah, I don't know how there's so much crossover between our
What are you
content
doing
and
at
stuff.
Mortis FM, y'all? Go over
Yeah,
to Will
dude.
of the Force. Come on.
Yeah, like
Look at his
Will-
backdrop.
I can't wait for all the angry comments from all the Ayla Sakura and Kit Fisto heads out there that they're not in the top 5.
You know we're gonna hear
I'm a
about
Gundy,
Anakin.
bro.
You know we're gonna hear about
Oh
Anakin.
my gosh, Anakin
I'm
Skywalker, that guy.
That was the question I was gonna ask in the middle. I was like, do we have Anakin in our list? And I was like, nobody's gonna have Anakin.
I love him.
I love him, but
I
is
love
he a
him.
true Jedi, bro? No.
I love him, and we said like they all make their mistakes. There's a certain level of mistakes. I think like there's a bar. There's like a
Anakin
bar you can get
Skywalker-
to.
He is the ultimate foil for the reason why all of those Jedi are so great.
Yeah. Yep.
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 Hey, maybe if Qui-Gon lived, bro. Cole, what is your favorite Star Wars quote?
This is one of those things that is pretty transient. It's going to change, but like I bring it up all the time. It's always I mean, like if I were to say truthfully, it would be the entire quote, but namely the snippet of Yoda's quote of like luminous beings, are we not this crude matter? Because it's
Yeah.
it's a very profound thing for me that as a kid it took me a long time to understand, but like I kind of felt like Luke in that moment, you know, and like I remember that that's when it really started pulling me in, that because it helps you understand not only the Force but the world itself around you, and just kind of understanding your connection to the universe. And I just think that's really special. So that's probably my answer for now. Could change. I mean, I could look it up and go, dang it, like I really wanted to say you fool, you know, but
I'm surprised. I know one of your top ones is Nimic's manifesto and Andor.
The entire manifesto is absolutely beautiful. Luthen's speech is absolutely beautiful. Kino Loy's speech. Go watch Andor, y'all. Tony, I'm watching you, man. Love you. Yeah, there's really so much that I could say. I'd be more than happy to make a Cole episode of like, hey guys, here's all of my favorite quotes, and then it's just the entire script of every movie.
A storybook, an ASMR of you just going through and just reading quotes and then flipping to the next page. It's like an hour.
I would do that. I could do that for like a holiday special joke. I could do that.
I was about to say, people, if y'all want that,
lo-fi quotes with Cole.
Oh, and this one's really dumb. This is an honorable mention. It's not even cool, but it's so funny. I don't remember the direct quote, but it's from Solo when Han is talking about like the maneuver he's about to do from from my guy Needles, who crashed and died doing this. The line delivery of that was just so funny for me. I don't know.
Solo is underrated, bro.
Solo is such a good movie.
Mine is it's very cut and dry. It is Luke's quote, actually from Rise of Skywalker, when he is consoling Rey, and that is confronting fear is the destiny of a Jedi. I just think it's and it very, very easily rivaled by the greatest teacher failure is. That both of those crazy that both of those are from the sequels, but they just stand out to me so much in my mind, and that's why I love them. But yeah, that's our chat pack question, and that is gonna do it for this episode of Mortis FM, a Star Wars podcast. Please make sure that you are following and subscribe to Will on all platforms. We do a lot of stuff.
Yes.
Keep an eye out for Tales from the Archive stuff.
Thank you to Will once again for being our second guest. Everyone stay tuned for a very special third guest. Still thinking about those George Lucas reservations. Whether or not that's true.
Same Dune time, same Dune channel. Right? Isn't that what it is?
Connor's gonna snipe me right now. But
please leave that in. Please leave that in.
There is one final thing that I must say. Will, Cole, may the Force be with you.
Always.